It's pre-recorded. It's not like live or anything. You know how this works. You do this. You're familiar.
Rob's a professional.
Exactly. I don't have to explain none of this.
Nope.
That's right.
You good?
But we're here. It's Thursday. This is episode 196 of the Herpeticulture Podcast, part of the Herpeticulture Network, which is brought to you by Fulvius Apparel, fulviusapparel.com. Check it out. Facebook, Instagram. Grab yourself a hat. Grab yourself a shirt. Maybe not a hat because I got to adjust the hats on the website still. But a shirt for sure.
Maybe not a hat.
I'm going to, tonight, I'm going to add, so just for people that listen to the podcast, because if you're listening to this, then you'll hear it and you'll know it. It's not going to be like a public thing. But if you use the code THN at checkout, I'm going to put a discount on there for network listeners.
Hey.
I got to add that. I meant to do it today after I got home from work, but you can ask Jake. I'm all over the place. Like I was like, yeah, we start at 8:30, and Jake's like, why are we starting later than normal? I was like, what are you talking about? We always start at 8:30. He said, no, we don't. I said, shit, really?
We haven't started at 8. We haven't started at 8:30 since we stopped starting at 9. We used to start at
I don't
9,
know,
and
man.
then we changed it to 8, and it's been 8 for like the last year.
I think I just struggle because, like, with the time zones and stuff with Chris when we do Corn Stars and stuff.
Because y'all start Corn Stars early, don't you?
Yeah. And we start Snakes and Stogies late, so this one I'm just like, I guess we'll start now. So
I'm an earlier the better kind of guy, because my ass got to be up real early.
Not when you're taking naps.
Yeah, I take nap. I took a nap for the first time today, for the first time in a while. I don't nap because I can't. It just ruins my whole day. But I was so tired, and I was like,
"Told you, man. That 20 minutes. That's the sweet spot. 20 minutes is all you need. Scientifically, 20 minutes is it.
It still always just screws me up, man. Like it just gets me all wonky. Like I don't like napping. I wake up at 5:30 every morning. I try to wake up at 5:30. Usually it's not till 6. But luckily, I live like all of less than 5 minutes from work, so I got clock in at 6:30. So if I leave my house at 6:25, we're good.
Gucci.
Cutting it a little close there, guy.
Hey, I can.
If you're on time, you're late. If you're early, you're on time.
I can technically clock in at 6:36 and not be late on the clock. So 7 minutes before, 7 minutes after. It's that county life, baby.
I'm like at a minimum, I'm 30 minutes early to work every day.
You're just giving them your time.
If I'm there at court, if I'm there
till 9.
Right, so. But if I'm there at like 8:45, I feel like I'm running behind. Like I don't know, man. Like Katie, it drives Katie crazy because like it's like 7:45 and I'm leaving the house because I'm like I gotta go to work. I gotta like get a jump start on things. I like to be able to get a head start on stuff, not be distracted. Like I can just I won't even worry about emails. I'll just get there and start printing. And getting stuff cranked out.
Putting in that OT, baby. That's right.
But when I want to leave early or something, it's like everyone's already like, it's no big deal because Justin's here early every day. And I tell my coworkers, like, if I'm late and you have not heard from me, something is severely wrong because I have not been late a day since I started. Like, I don't call out. I'm not late unless something catastrophic has happened. Like, if you don't hear from me and I'm not there, call the police because something is off. Like, something's wrong. Something horribly wrong. I'm dead in a ditch somewhere. I'm sure of it.
You don't have the Atheris or the pygmies yet, so it's something inconsequential,
That's right.
Let me save the police some trouble. My wife did it.
Well, something you definitely want to leave your house early for is when you order your cage.
BlackBox cages
from blackboxcages.com.
Fellow BlackBox.
That's right.
Yeah.
We are family.
Rob knows.
We are family.
I know all about it.
We are one. BlackBox Kingdom is right here.
Join our cult.
You got to. That's me and Justin just made the trek this last weekend to go get our stuff. We got some awesome material that is currently sitting in my living room. Because you
haven't even set yours up yet?
No, man, because I got 6 snakes to still get out of here, and then I got to redo the whole room, and I can't redo the whole room until those snakes are gone. Well, I can get the cage.
Put them in temporary tubs.
Yeah, for real.
I can get. Well, see, that's the thing. If I that involves buying more $20 tubs.
How big of a tub do you need? I've got tubs. As long as I can get them back before brumation time. I've got 32 quarts.
These are not 32 quart tub snakes.
Well, then you're on your own.
I know I'm on my own. I can get the two cages set up because I got the XT4 Bio. That's the 4x2x2. That one I can set up in here because I can just throw my other 4x2x2s on top of it. And then I got the XT3, I think it was. It's a 3x18 by 18.
Yeah, because you got the XT3 and I got the XA3.
Yeah, I got the XT3.
I got the bio version.
3x18 by 18, but it's got a divider in it. So it's gonna be like a grow out rat snake display. So super excited about those. I can put 2 cages in here. I just haven't done it yet because I'm busy. But the rack is gonna have to wait. Because I also got the XR55, which holds the ARS 55 series tubs. Got the tubs in, got the rack here, ready to rock and roll. Just got to redo my whole freaking room first. So once
like
that happens,
that's a regular thing now. When we go to BlackBox, there's almost always a game of Tetris to be played when you get home, and
it's got to happen.
It's the worst part about it.
Plus, I need an extra pair of hands to move all this stuff around. So it's awesome, though. We're definitely going to do a video. The rack I got has their new heat tape system with all the safety features in it. So
it's like the upgraded version of the racks now.
Yeah. So we're going to do a little video on those. And we just lost Rob.
Yeah, I got the XR16. I got a second one of those, and then I got an XA3 Bio for the female Persimmon, which eventually will house the pair of Persimmon. The rack is already set up and ready to go. I somehow managed to get that up on the other rack, so I ended up stacking those racks, and somehow managed to get it up there without throwing my back out. While my child sat there and watched me struggle, and I tried to get her to help me, and she's like, "It's too heavy," but I did it because she was like, "I'll help you," and I was like, "Go ahead and lift up one end," and she tried. She's like, "Oh no, never mind." I was like, "Okay."
Yeah.
I was like, "If I fall and I can't get up, I'm gonna need you to call 911 for me." Like, here's my phone because it's gonna happen. But I got it up there. I got all the holes melted in the tubs because I add a lot of ventilation to those.
Yeah,
which took me like 2 days. I think like a total of like 3 or 4 hours of sitting there melting holes, which I absolutely, that's like the one thing about this hobby that I will hate. I will pay a premium to get that done and not have to do it myself. If there's one thing I gotta get bougie about, it's ventilation holes and not having to deal with them.
You know what I've seen some people do is buy like 5 or 6 soldering irons. Yep. And then buy like, a piece of wood and drill holes in it to like set them up. So all you gotta do is like take the side of the tub, press it on, and then flip it around, do it again. And that way you do 5 or 6 holes at a time, and it cuts your especially if you're doing like one size tub, a whole bunch of them, save you like hours.
Yeah, I saw Clint with Metazotics. He does he has like 4, 5, 6 of them in a row, and then he's got them pinched between 2 boards. Yeah, like it's like two strips of boards. He's got them pinched with clips on each end. I'm like, boy, that needs to happen because like my tubs are not lacking ventilation. That is one thing I take very, very seriously is heavy ventilation, especially in the enclosed racks. I really like the enclosed racks just because they're a lot more sturdy than, your old, the what they call them, something a little cheaper on the wallet, but they're not nearly as, they move a lot. They're not sturdy. These BlackBox racks are just solid. They're very, very solid. But
you need to make a rack that holds critter keepers, like the shallower critter keepers. Those are like the ultimate in ventilation.
Yeah. So I've got a million holes in all my stuff, so I definitely need to make something like that for melting.
See, that's the problem is like I don't have to do it enough to really justify going that far with it. But when I get stuff that I have to do it, it's usually a lot.
That's the thing. Like especially now, because I'm gonna try and change over some tubs to the Freedom Breeder styles, because they have matching. They have the same size for Freedom Breeder as they do the God, I cannot think today.
Vision.
They have the same size Freedom Breeder for a Vision, except the Freedom Breeders have cup holders, and those I found out work really freaking well for my pits.
Yep.
So some of my stuff's gonna get switched to that, and so I just updated a few, and I tried the Freedom Breeder tubs with the rack from BlackBox with the cup holders in it, and man, I haven't had a swamp cage in 2 weeks, and I'm like, let's fucking go. I'm about it. I love those things. So probably gonna switch some of those over.
I shifted everything that was going into that XR16 into that, and then shifted everything that was in this small, like, homemade shoebox rack that I had that had a bunch of smaller stuff in it into the tubs that those snakes were in. So I had to empty them out, wipe them down, clean them out, refill them, put the snakes in, label maker, all that stuff. And so now I have this empty rack on top of the other rack from the company that I do not like.
Those who we do not speak of.
And now I have to I have to figure out where this Persimmon cage is going to go, because I got to move the cube that the pair of rhinos are in and one of the bio-Gs that one of the small rhinos is in. And it's just
you can stack those bio-Gs on top of the cage, man, because they're the same length and width.
That's super high though, because if they're going on top of the Jansenii, I'm gonna need a damn ladder just to get up there and.
You can't have your cake and eat it too, Smitty.
I can. My weight says otherwise.
No, I'm just saying, like, if you put the cage on the ground, you can stack those bio-Gs up. I already told you how to do it.
Where on the ground am I going to put that?
I already told you how to lay out your room. You didn't listen to me.
Your logic it's not that simple. That Canberra rack is what the issue is. That's the root of all evil.
You get a bunch of bio-Gs to replace those Canberra racks. And become a peanut oil.
I mean, I think that might be the plan eventually, like figure out something, because it's a mess. But either way, I'm super excited to get this Persimmon cage together. I'm gonna get a video together of that as well, because I'm kind of balling out a little more in compared to other cages that I've done for that. So I have this atrocity right here. It looks horrible, but that's my bamboo plate thing. So the bottom of that's going to get covered with cypress and like substrate and stuff. And I'm supposed to make it look bamboo foresty. And I got a cool like pot that looks very, very Vietnamese forest-ish. And I'm going to put some plants in there and some other stuff. So Matt most laughed at it when I showed him a picture. I was like, it'll make sense. I was like, look, when you see it like right now,
you gotta have vision. You gotta have vision.
Yeah,
exactly. I was like, the Mona Lisa looked stupid when she was 45% complete too. Okay, so, come on.
Well, Rob, since you are a fellow BlackBox lover, what kind of equipment do you have from them?
I haven't picked up stuff from them yet. I've been to Jeremy's. Yeah, Jeremy's got a whole bunch of stuff. He's got like a whole Amazon room. And I have been eyeing some of the 3x18x18s for some raise up scrubs.
Yeah.
Because I got a bunch of stuff that's like just getting to that size where I can start throwing them into 3-foot enclosures. And then the Halmaheras, doing them in something that I can just like cover the front of so they have less exposure to what's going on.
And Clint, so while we were down there, Clint told us, on the little doors that they add for
the lockers on the racks,
Clint told us he can actually make a door out of that material, so it's dark.
It's completely opaque. It's that black plexi kind of acrylic stuff.
Oh, damn.
So he said he could make it, because I was having the same problem, because I'm thinking about putting some pits and some 4x2s. But I was like, man, I got a couple really high-strung adults, and I'm like, they were going to bust their face on the glass. But then he told me he could make a door out of those, and I was like, That's
You're
gonna
like,
that's gonna look a whole lot better than newspaper. Like, so no, they're cool, man. I love it, man. Can't say enough good things about them. Awesome people, awesome product. We were spitballing some ideas with them about some new rack designs, and it's big things to come, man. Y'all don't need to sleep on BlackBox. It's they're a great company, and they're leading the game, in my opinion. Like,
for real,
bar none. Like, nobody touches the stuff that they're doing right now. It's amazing.
And if you use the code THN at checkout, save yourself some money when you go to buy a cage or a rack, which you should go do.
You should do that. Like,
seriously, I mean, we say it all the time, but like, legitimately, we would not stand behind a product or a company if we did not use it ourselves or think that it was something that we thought was worth our getting behind.
It's one of those things that, like, I don't have BlackBox because they're our sponsor. I bought almost $2,000 worth of equipment before they ever sponsored us.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this before I hadn't met him or anything, but Justin was kind of working with Jen a little bit, and I bought a ton of equipment from them, and we went up there and picked it up, and shortly after is when they sponsored the podcast, because like I was like, this is it, this is the company. Like,
hell yeah.
No doubt about it. So I'm gonna start doing more I think I'm going to start doing little Instagram videos on some of their stuff. Just little shorts, and just to kind of show off what I got going on here, especially once the room changes, because I'm going to have a lot of stuff from them once everything's said and done. And so I'm going to try to do some little shorts for Instagram and show off the goodness that is BlackBox. I promise you, if you don't have their stuff, you're missing out.
Rob, do you like hot sauce?
I do, and I actually have Steve Snaketuary hot sauce. Yeah.
Did you get the whole? Did you get the whole set?
No, I didn't get the whole set. Because I'm not like big on like the green sauce type one.
See,
I think that's the Cottonmouth.
I never was either, but that's the best one.
You're missing out.
I'm the same way.
Either. I don't like green hot sauce, but that Cottonmouth sauce, is pretty good.
I might have to get it because I'm one of those people who, like, when I was a kid, I would only eat like 3 things. Like, I didn't eat. Oh man, hold on 1 second.
Kid cuisines.
No, not even. I would I would only eat like plain pasta with butter and salt on it. Like, if it had a drop of red sauce on it, I couldn't eat it. Like,
oh man,
yeah, I was one of those kids where, like, I was so picky about everything. I couldn't eat. I couldn't try things, and I didn't start trying things until I was like 24. So I'm relatively new to trying new things, and I do like. I got the copperhead sauce and the pygmy sauce. I think I got one more, but I haven't tried it. I like opened one, and then I was like, man, I should have just left it because I like the way that they look with the black the cap on it. So I might just buy another one so I can have a set. For like just chilling on the shelf, and then ones that I can use.
You can get a whole set for just display, have them up in your snake room somewhere. Yeah, I need
snake art stuff. So
I'm planning on getting that because I've got a bunch of pictures that I've been waiting to put up in my reptile room, but because of this whole room redo that I've been planning for the last freaking year, I haven't put anything up because I don't want to put unnecessary holes in my wall if I don't have to. Yeah. So I've got a bunch of art to go up, and I think once everything's done, I'm going to get a whole set of the Snaketuary hot sauce and get that up somewhere. And what are you laughing at? It's so funny.
Oh, you saying you don't like to put unnecessary holes in your wall?
Oh, we're doing that. We're doing that. I didn't put a hole in the wall. Thank you very much.
Kyle.
I did not put a hole in that wall. That wall put a hole in me, but I did not. I didn't. I hit a stud.
Ouch.
And that was a long time ago, my friend.
I know.
That was a very long time ago.
Now he's cautious.
Don't bring up bad memory. Don't bring up bad memory.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Jeez. It's a rough time in my life. That was during my sabbatical, okay? I was gone from THP.
He got a monster tattoo while he was gone.
I was just say he hasn't touched Mountain Dew since.
Yeah. Anyway,
the
Steve
code red
Sanctuary
hits
hot
different.
sauce. That's
Code
what you
red.
should be having, because you're missing out if you like hot sauce.
Baja blast that wall.
I was just gonna.
God damn it.
Bruh, that's too much.
Yes, Steve Sanctuary. So get his hot sauce. If you do that, you're helping him out. He's doing a bunch of public education, rescues, rehabilitations, relocations, all that good stuff. And if you get that hot sauce, you're helping him directly with that.
That's right.
He posted a nice selfie the other day. I guess he got a black rat from, maybe it was a Texas rat. I don't remember, but it bit him on the face. So
You gave him a
was
little,
like,
little kiss.
Yeah,
Just a little
yeah,
thank you.
Thanks for saving me.
That's one thing I have avoided somehow to date.
Not Casey Cannon.
Face bite, man.
Yeah.
It's not fun.
I haven't taken a face bite yet. I came really close one day. I was in college and we were pond hopping in my neighborhood fishing, and somebody found a bandit down it was right outside of a storm pipe, and I leaned down over the pipe and grabbed it by the tail, and I didn't really think it through, so I had it like right here in my face, and somebody took a video, and I took screenshots from the video, because this thing, I've got a picture. It's literally reared back, and you can see the mouth open. And then in the next picture at lunch, and it's under the bill of my hat.
Oh,
in
no.
the picture, I was like, oh, God. That was too close for comfort.
Yeah, jeez.
But
I haven't had any snakes like bite and hold on, but I got a tap on the side of the face from like a 5.5 foot blood python.
Oh, God.
Yeah. She was kind of annoyed. But the thing was like,
don't get too comfortable. Just remember what I'm capable of.
Yeah, for real. She was new to me. Like I had just picked her up maybe a couple hours before, and I went to go visit like one of my extended family members, and they were like, "What do you got in the bag?" And I was like, "Oh, just this blood python I picked up." Blah blah blah. And I pick her up, and I can feel that she's a little bit tense, and I'm like, "Okay, whatever." She's being tense, and she just kind of like hot because she was, she's laying across my arms, and she pops up, hits me on the side of the face, like top jaw up here, bottom jaw just above my lip, like just with the side of her mouth. Quick little love tap, and then lands right back down in my hands. And my aunt was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "I think I'm okay." Am I bleeding? She's like, "Yeah, you're bleeding a little bit." And I'm like, "It's okay. I guess I'll put her back in the bag then."
Want to see me bite in the face? Want to see me do it again?
I'm fine.
I'm fine. And then the other one that I've had that was kind of close to my face but not quite is my Jayapura scrub, Fleb, the one that just laid eggs.
God.
The day that I got her in, I unboxed her and I took her out of the bag, and she was being pretty chill, and she's wrapped on my arm, and I'm like kind of holding her up just to like get a good look around her. And as soon as I lifted her above my eye level, she like cocked back, and I was like, crap.
Yep.
She's like 4.5, 5 foot long, and she's on the end of my arm. I'm like, I'm about to get bit.
There's no dodging it.
Yeah. I just turned my face away, and she bit the side of like my ear. So she just like hit me real quick, and then like just stayed cocked back, and I was like, I deserve that. I deserve that one.
I learned the reach of scrubs very quickly with that tandem bar, because I was so used to like chondros, which do reach pretty far, but like that tandem bar, man, I'm like, nah, I'm good. And that thing would shoot out and be like, oh, like feel the breeze on my nose.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay. It's like that. All right. Longer hook.
I love that about them.
Yeah, man, they're freaking crazy. I miss my scrub. And every time I see your posts, I'm like, damn it. Like, I don't need them again.
Maybe I need a scrub.
I don't need them again. I love them.
I got my fix. That tandem bar was plenty for me.
If I got
tandem bars are really different, man. They're really different.
If I got a chance to get tandem bars, I would. Like,
why?
They're pocket scrubs, man.
They're not really pocket scrubs. I mean, they're still 6 foot, 7 foot long.
That's true.
Get a Wamina and feed it conservatively, and you got the same thing.
Yeah, that's a good point. But I love the bar necks, man. I do. Like, out of any of the look of scrubs, Barn
It's hard to
X
beat.
are
It's hard to
like
beat.
the Jayapuras and the Kofi Owls are just oh my.
I
That
don't know,
reduced
man.
look.
Those
I
Waminas
love the
are
reduced look,
and the
man.
Oxybills are ridiculous.
Ooh, Oxabills are tight, and the Moluccans, like, ooh.
Moluccans are nice. Yeah, Moluccans are nice.
I wish. One day I'll have Moluccans. Not yet, but one day.
Yeah, but before we get too deep into the scrub talk, but we definitely will. Justin, do you have any updates since we haven't recorded in 2 weeks? Anything going on?
Nothing since sort of the update on snakes and stogies. But if anybody didn't catch that, Cliff Notes version is corn snake clutch hatch from the ghost tessera to the pied blood red male.
Mm-hmm.
Completely assumed everything in that clutch was going to come out normal looking, but either normal or tessera with nothing but hets, and everything came out hypo and mask with some tesseras and all kinds of goofiness. So it helps to know your hets.
Yeah.
And it's a little frustrating when you don't know what hets your animals have.
True.
Then
Especially
you
with
get these
corns.
things and you're like, now, like, what else is buried in the mix? Because I know it ain't AML, but what else is there that I just didn't pair? Who knows what else is lurking beneath the surface there. But those hatched, haven't had first sheds yet. I'm doing the mouse cutting experiment for sure. Started that, got initial weights on all of them. I'm going to weigh them all again, I think, on Saturday. Waiting for first sheds before I feed them, just because I found in my experience, if I try to feed them before that first shed, most of them don't take. So I just wait. And then I'm going to feed them. And then before I feed the following week, I'll weigh them again. And I'm going to do that off and on for a while and, graph that out and hopefully have similar results to what Hurley had when she did the same study. So we'll see.
Nice, man.
Yeah, I was very concerned with my corn clutch because I purposely bought stuff that was supposed to be normal because I didn't want hets of anything. And so the entire time that these Okati eggs have been incubating, I'm staring at them and be like, none of you better be albino. I'm going to be so mad. I'm going to be so mad. I swear to God. I don't want any albinos in this thing. So as soon as I saw little heads poking out, I looked real quick. I was like, no albinos, no albinos. Okay, we're cool. We're cool.
All right,
no
good,
albinos.
The Focatees.
Yeah, bro. The Focatees.
What was that pairing? Like what?
It's Focatee to Focatee, bro. Come
well,
on
I mean,
now.
what constitutes a Focatee for people that don't know?
Anything that's not so if you are not in my small realm of influence where I talk about these things, I've got some like quote unquote Okati look animals, so they have that look of the hunt club, bright orange, black borders around the saddles down the back and the red inside the saddles, but I think one of mine is from Sherman Line, the male. So he potentially could have lineage back to hunt club stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The female is not. She's just like a random
just a
corn,
really good looking,
just a really nice looking corn. And so whenever I would post them, people would be like, "That's not a real Okati. That's not from Hunt Club." And I'm like, "You got me there. Hey, you sure showed me." And I just got really sick of like having the conversation over and over and over again because like. That's a trade name. Like people call that look Okati as a look, and then it's also a locality. And so I was like, how do I stop the confusion here? And so I was like, I'm just gonna call them Focatees because it just lets people know they're not the real thing.
The funniest part about that is it's not like there's this giant wall around the hunt club that stops other animals, other corns in the area from looking like that. Like I have an animal from across how wide is the Broad River? Like what, a mile?
It's not quite, but
close to it.
Yeah.
And it comes from, I mean, from the hunt club, it's like what, probably 15 miles difference from like Green Pond over to the hunt club area, Jake.
Yeah.
Roundabout. If I showed you those next to each other, most people would be like, "Oh yeah, those are really nice hunt club animals."
Yep.
But on a timeline, those are pretty far separated because there's a massive sound that separates them. Sound being like a giant, river that goes out into the Atlantic. Yep. Yeah. And like, it's really because that's exactly what it has become. Like that name has become synonymous with normals, which I don't necessarily agree with. Like I think wild type is a better name for that kind of stuff. But it's like if you showed people animals that came from, you know, even 5 miles outside of the hunt club area, you'd still get that same,
Probably
you get a
same
very similar look.
phenotype.
And so it's like really like,
and it's funny because like this is, you know, just me and the corns that I've seen, you know, like right there. So the hunt club, or not, it's not air quote. I don't know why I did air quotes. The hunt club stuff it's called the Okatee Hunt Club. Now there is Okatee, South Carolina, and the actual area of Okatee is in a completely different county, or at least part of it. Like, so Hunt Club is in Jasper County, and which is in like Ridgeland area, you know, and then actual Okatee is mostly in Beaufort. Some of the area that's considered Okatee might go into Jasper County, but Okatee Hunt Club isn't even in Okatee, which is kind of funny to me.
They're spelled completely different too.
Yeah, they're spelled completely different. But that was the old spelling of Okatee. Okatee used to be spelled Okeetee, and that's how the Hunt Club still spells it. But Okatee, South Carolina, is Okatie. And it's weird, you know. It's got this whole thing. But I'll tell you what I found when I was working on the plantation. I found a corn snake. It was in Yamasee, South Carolina, so probably 30 minutes away, completely different county. I found a corn snake that would put every hunt club animal to shame.
Damn.
And I stand by that. I'm talking the most red, the most black corn snake you will ever see in your freaking life.
Damn.
And it was just a beautiful snake. And if anybody looked at that, they'd be like, "Oh, dang, where in Hunt Club did you find that?" I'm like,
well,
not even close.
The other question is, like, as line bred as some of these things have been for however many generations, it's like, at what point can you even really call it a Hunt Club animal anymore? If, like, at some point it gets so far removed.
Some myself.
At some point it gets so far removed. I don't like. Yeah, you could say it comes from Hunt Club line stuff, but after a while, I would think you're so far removed from it that it's like seems kind of very distant.
Yeah, it's like, because like if you look at it, at the end of the day, we are not going, oh, this is a hunt line animal and this is a hunt line animal, just two random ones from there. We're going, these are hunt club animals in this group. I like the look of this one and this one, so we're going to breed these ones together, and we're getting really far away from what they look like. Like, don't get me wrong, they probably look nice in that area, but not as nice as the stuff we're making in captivity. So like, yeah, it could have come from that line, but to be like, oh, this other animal that has the same like visual look is not it's not good because it's not from that line. It's like, come on, man. Like, we're all selectively breeding for stuff that we like.
Right.
So.
It's the same thing with the Loma Alta Bairds, like the really nice super silver with high orange. Like, that's a very exaggerated version of that locality is what it is.
Right.
Like, yes, that's where the basis of that look comes from. But when you've line bred it very purposefully and specifically over years, like, you're getting the best of the best purposefully.
Yes.
And if you go to Loma Alta, like, yeah, you will find some really nice animals. Will they all look like that? Probably not close, but
because that's the thing. Everybody thinks like you go to, because like I can be in Hunt Club, I can be in Okatee Hunt Club because there's state roads that you can road cruise. I've done it 3 times now. Literally signs everywhere in the woods. No trespassing, Okatee Hunt Club. You're right in the middle of it. I can be in there in 40 minutes, maybe less. You know, it's right up the road, and it's just, I don't know. I think it's funny. You know, I get it. You know, but that's the thing. It's like everybody thinks that like you go to Hunt Club, you're gonna find a corn snake, and it's gonna be the best corn snake you've ever seen. I bet you there's a ton of corn. More often than not, I bet you those corns out there are pretty freaking average.
Yeah.
Like, but they're Hunt Club animals, but everybody has this Don't get me wrong. I know there's some smoke show corns and hunt club. I know there is. They're out there. They've been caught, but they have generic looking corn snakes like a lot of other places. I bet you if you go to some of the private islands in actual Okatee, I bet you the corn snakes blow those out of the water in hunt club because they basically line breed themselves because they're condensed to an island. Like I don't know.
Is that an issue? Like, do people do the same thing with scrub localities?
What?
Like when someone says, oh, this is a nice Jayapura, and people are like, that's not a Jayapura because it doesn't have X, Y, or Z. Or
the scrub situation is really bad and messed up right now, just in general, because technically, I think all scrubs are classified under Amethystina except for Naura, except for the tandem bars.
Right.
So like Highlands, Moluccans. Oh, no, Moluccans are class Lepus. So Highlands, Southerns, Barnecks are all considered Amethystina.
Yeah.
So like, no, that's not the like right. That. Waminas are still considered Amethystina.
Yeah.
That's just not true.
No.
And then when it comes to like localities of, Barnecks, there are certain looks like the sarongs are really distinct. Like they have the most pattern, most black on them. They got the spots down the sides. So it's easy to look at a Barneck and be able to tell if it is a sarong, if it has those markers. But then you look at any of the other localities and there's a decent amount of variation in it between like Manokwari, Jayapura, any of the other locales. There's a lot of variation for Barnecks at least. And then with Highlands, there are a lot of different looking Highlands. Like there's some that are more gold overall, and then there's some that have like a more muted color and then bright gold bars down the sides. It's just there hasn't been enough done with it.
Isn't now if I
think like
you broke up there.
Yeah, you broke up. I didn't hear. But isn't like
who did me?
Yeah, you did.
Oh, I said there's a lot of parallels to chondros.
Yeah,
in that regard.
Yeah, but they finally broke up chondros, which I can't believe. Like I heard y'all, so I was listening to y'all's podcast today, Rob, and I heard you talking about
going off about it.
Yeah, that whole thing, and I agree wholeheartedly. Like scrubs are so very different. Like you can say, now granted, so tell me if I'm wrong. Now I believe because when I got my Southern, there was some, I was talking to somebody about my guy, and he was like, I don't know, man. I think that kind of looks like a Highlands based on the lateral orange color, blah, blah. Isn't there kind of a mix up sometimes between Southerns and Highlands based on colors? Because they have a very similar pattern, but the Highlands are known to have those lateral orange, kind of colors, and the Southerns are a little bit more muted and tan.
Yeah, the Southerns. Deal, right? Yeah, if you look at like the Southerns and then the distribution, and we're finding this out now with a lot of species like taipans, and then Dan Mallory found children's pythons in Southeast Asia, and lots of these species that they're in Australia, and then they're also in these southern areas of Southeast Asia,
Indonesia,
all that areas. You're finding that these species that are in Australia are also happening up in the southern portion of Asia. The Merauke scrubs or the southern scrubs are basically just that. They're like a smaller cousin of the Australian, King Ornai in my eyes.
Yeah.
Smaller version of the King Ornai. They have the same exact look. If you take a southern and a picture of a King Ornai and you put them next to each other, most people would not be able to tell the difference between them. You see an adult, you go, oh shit, that thing's freaking huge. But for babies, I don't think so. And then also I've seen baby southern scrubs that have gold bars on them, and then as they get out of that baby size, they completely fade away. Like I have a male southern here, and when I got him real small, he had some light gold bars down his sides, and I was like, that's kind of weird. I wonder how he's going to develop. And he has since lost all of that, but he doesn't have the high yellow color that the Oxabil or the other Highland scrubs have. And then also I have seen a couple stores that do their own importing have imported some scrubs as Maroques, as southern scrubs, and you look at them and they have these bright gold bars down the sides that are indicative of Highlands, but they've got them labeled as Southerns, as Maroke animals,
Right.
or just labeled as generic scrub python.
Right.
And so I've seen that happening recently too. So you got to wonder, where's the overlap, where's the line, where's the cutoff, or do they overlap in areas? I think that one of the things with scrubs is that a lot of them were named for a locality where they were maybe first taken out of, but we're now finding out that they have a much larger distribution. One of the big ones is Waminas, because every scrub that has come out of Jayapura in the last 3 years is a Wamina type scrub
Right.
python. So I when I was at Nerd before I left, they had Jayapura scrubs on the list, and I was like, I've been looking for a male Jayapura for years, so let's order like 5 or 6 of them. They come in and it's all Wamina type, and I was like, well, that is not what I was looking for.
Because the stuff from Jayapura is supposed to be a barneck type, correct?
Yes.
Like all
Yeah.
the stuff from Jayapura is supposed to be,
Previously,
barneck.
yeah.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And and then it also goes into because the whole like southern thing and having the lateral orange on them, it kind of makes you wonder: is there more variation as babies than we think? Are a lot of the southerns getting some of that?
We don't even
Kind of
know.
orange, and then it fades out.
Yeah.
So are people seeing the orange as babies, being like, "This is a Highland," or "This is whatever," and then it grows up, and then they're like, "Oh, maybe not," but then they just stick with it because it sounds cooler.
We don't even have big enough sample size to say. Like,
No,
we don't
exactly.
get
And that's
hatchling scrubs in hardly. There, it just doesn't happen often. And then there's even fewer people breeding them, so it's like, it is what it is.
Why do you think that is?
Why do I think that people have a tough time breeding scrubs, or why do we not see baby scrubs?
So it seems to me that in the last 5-ish years, probably the same time frame that we've started the podcast, like there seemed to be this big sort of crest into scrubs, and then within the last probably 2 or 3 years, there's been a very big sort of decline in scrubs. People got out of them, people went crazy into them, and then people kind of like, I guess maybe they lost their allure to,
because in that 3-year time span they got big.
That, or I mean, well,
shouldn't.
I'm curious, like, because you also, when someone hatches out scrubs, really of any kind, it seems like it's a big deal.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. So there's
where's
different
the
levels.
disconnect?
Yeah, there's different levels to it, because I've been watching just scrubs and people keeping scrubs and stuff for, I don't know, 15 years or more. Let's see, I'm about to turn 35, so it put me at like 17. Yeah, like 15 years, just paying real close attention to who's got scrubs, what species they're keeping, what their attempts at breeding are like, what their success is like, if they're sharing that sort of information. I'm one of those people who likes to gather a whole lot of information from all the different areas that it is out there, and then I don't always end up talking about all of it, but I can use it to compile and get a mental image in my mind of things that I might want to apply, or ways that I think other people might be able to use it to their advantage if they ask me about it. And so there's a lot of people that get scrubs, and then they're like, oh, scrubs got to be big, and they are thinking like other large snakes, where they're like, I'm going to make it big, and they make them big, and then they die when they're 4 years old or 5 years old or 6 years old.
Exactly.
I think that scrubs in particular are just more sensitive to that feeding regimen. And like I've heard you guys talk about, and there's been a bunch of studies on when right after a snake eats, their body goes into hyperdrive, where their organs get bigger, their everything is on high alert, and it is like mayhem on their body, kind of.
Everything's working overtime.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that, in some hardier species like reticulated pythons or ball pythons, their bodies can handle just being at that heightened growing pace for longer periods of time, where I think scrub bodies, if they are exposed to that too much, it puts a lot of stress on their heart and on other organs, and then it leads to a lack of longevity, and it ends up killing them long term. Because I can't tell you how many people I've seen get scrubs, get them to 15 feet long, and then see them die.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It is.
Yeah.
And, at under 10 years old. And when people see, the way that I'm doing my scrubs, and some other people have been doing their scrubs, where they grow them a lot slower, they can handle big meals. Like you can give them a good sized meal and they'll take it. You've seen all these videos of them eating these giant birds and shit. Like their bodies can handle that, but I don't think that they can handle it back to back to back to back to back, like
Right.
people do with.
You can't feed them that jumbo rat every 2 weeks.
Yeah,
You
it's just
know,
their body doesn't
it's-
recoup quick enough, or whatever it is.
Right.
And I think a lot of people get discouraged because if you grow them slower, it takes you longer to see success, which in today's society doesn't work out. People get
Not
frustrated
okay.
after. Yeah, if it's 3 years old and it doesn't breed, get rid of it. Like that's everyone's mindset.
We're an instant gratification generation, and that's really something I try and steer away from, and there's also the mindset of just because it can breed doesn't mean it should.
Yes.
Type of thing. And I feel like scrubs would fall into that, and because I'm a firm believer, especially with Boyds, that I'm at the very least a 5-year kind of guy. I'm not a push them to breed at 3.5, even 4 years old. I like 5, maybe even 6, just for longevity purposes, man. I don't think animals, obviously, rat snakes and corn snakes can vary a little bit. Even those, I prefer my rat snakes to be 4. Yeah. Everybody pushes for 3. I like 4. That's just a personal thing. But I'm just because it can doesn't mean it should. And I think scrubs fall into that 6, maybe even 7-year mark of being like,
oh yeah,
that's prime. Like that's when they really should be at that point. And but
yeah, I mean, again, you're looking at going back to the parallels with chondros. I mean, you're looking at animals that occupy pretty much the same space and are just as seasonal of eaters as chondros will be, with rainy and dry seasons. We see the same issue with chondros and them getting obese very quickly. Yep. I think with scrubs, it's probably it's different because I feel like they're higher metabolism than chondros are. So maybe they don't hold on to that weight as much as a chondro would. If you look in the same amount of time with the same number of meals, kind of thing. But that is, again, like you see pictures of any species with these rattlesnakes that are eating rabbits, stuff like that.
Yeah,
it's like that doesn't mean they need to be eating that. It's like that's just that's a blip in the timeline of that animal's life where it just got lucky. Like that is that is not the rule. That is the exception by a long shot. Yep. And who knows when that snake would eat again after that meal.
6 months later, it's like, I got this big meal. Now I'm going to go sit someplace cool and not eat for, 3 months or some shit. Like people are like, I saw it eat a rabbit, so I got to feed it a rabbit every week. And I'm like, dude, they don't have a calendar. They don't go, it's Wednesday. It's time for feeding. Like,
no.
Well, that's always one of the things that Terry Phillip always said that I liked a lot was, just because it snows doesn't mean I'm going to go throw snow in with my rattlesnakes when I brumate them. Like, what they're going to experience in the wild doesn't, like, I'm all for trying to do things that lines up with the natural history, but there's a limit.
Line. You're not going to expose them to predators. Come on now.
Right. So I've got kind of a series of questions for you when it comes to scrubs, just to kind of help some people out. Number one is, how big do you think your average scrub should be, whether it be southern to barneck? And then are you more of a big item, less frequent, or smaller item, more frequent kind of
Can we
feeding.
preface the first part of that by saying, is there a massive difference in size? But barring tandem bars, obviously, but like between the Highlands and Southerns and things like that, like,
Right.
is there any is there a major
Waminas.
size difference between the different sectors?
I would say that there is a decent size difference between, at least some of them. The most commonly bred scrubs are Southerns and Waminas, and the Southerns tend to get good size. I mean, if you give them time and feed them right, they will, live a long time and also get big. I've seen Southerns that are pushing, probably 14 feet or so. Yeah, so it's a good size scrub,
Yeah, that's a
and
big animal.
yeah, maybe 14, 15 foot. So good size. That's kind of right in that bar neck size range too. But also, the Sarong bar necks seem to get a bit bigger than the Jaipuras, just from what I've seen and from pictures online and from my own animals. My Jaipura scrub that I bred this year, granted, I don't feed any of my snakes like I want to get them huge, but I've had her since I think it was 2019. So I've had her for 4 years now. I got her when she was about 4.5 foot, and she is maybe 8.5 foot or 9 feet long right now. So I've had her for 4 years. She's under 10 feet because Janet is maybe 11 foot and Janet's almost 10 now.
Okay.
So, the Barnecks tend to be touted as the biggest because I have seen some freaking massive Barnecks.
Monsters.
San Diego Zoo has this just ginormous Barneck there that I really need to see in person, just because I've seen pictures of it and I'm like, man, that thing is obscenely large. It's probably old as hell too. It's probably like 35 years old or some shit.
Right.
But I've seen a lot of 14 to 15 foot Sarong Barnecks. I've seen a decent amount of Southerns that are well over 11 feet. So I'd say probably in that 12 to 14 foot range. Whereas the Wamina type scrubs, I tend to see on the smaller side. I haven't seen any really giant Waminas.
Right, yeah.
Biggest I've seen is probably like 10 or 11 feet. And you
that's
gotta think
that's a pretty big Wamina.
Yeah, that would be a big one. And then also, like, when people hear like 11 foot, they're usually thinking like 11-foot berm, where it's like, a bit bigger around than a Coke can or something.
This is like a carpet.
It's a 2-liter.
It's almost a big coastal size.
Yeah,
as far as like girth goes. Yeah.
Yeah, like 10-foot Wamina is not a big, maybe as big around as a Coke can, maybe probably even smaller than that.
Right.
As far as width goes. Whereas like I've seen Barnecks that are way bigger around than a Coke can.
Right.
And so the Waminas tend to stay smaller. They're also a little bit easier to breed. Probably shouldn't say that they're easier to breed. I have seen more people breed Waminas and Southerns than Barnecks or Clastolepis or Highlands.
They're more commonly bred.
Exactly. A big shout out to Stephen Cush because he just hatched out Highlands. I think it's the first clutch of Highlands in the United States. That's huge, just absolutely massive.
Yeah.
Big shout to him. And then there was a guy in Europe, Lawrence, who produced Highlands as well.
Yeah.
And so the Highlands kind of get similar from what I've seen. Similar in between like the Southern and Wamina, so at that like 12-foot range where they're not big, they're like giant, but they are a bigger scrub than the Waminas are. And then you got your tandem bars that are like 6, 7, maybe 8 foot long, which are the itty bitties. And so I see there is a decent size difference. I think it also has to do with how people feed them, because like you can put food into them and get them big. It's just they probably won't live super long if you end up doing that.
It's like kind of like the 10-foot coastal thing.
Yeah.
Like, and again,
the mythical 10-foot coastal.
Yeah, like I said earlier, there's a difference between should breed and can breed, and then there's also a difference between can get that big and should get that big. At least at an earlier size. If I would imagine if a coastal lives 30 years and it eventually hits that 9-foot range, okay, but if this thing's 6, 7 years old and it's 9 feet long, you did something wrong. That's just my opinion, because snakes never stop growing. So over 30 years, if it gets to that point, then okay, but
One other thing is like if you look at how big humans can potentially be and how small humans can potentially be, you go, okay, humans can get 7'10" tall, and it's like
We've
if
all
imagine if you
seen my 600-pound life.
for real,
Yeah.
like you're like, okay, they can get this big, and people take that as like that's the goalpost, that's what I need to get it to, and it's like genetically, not all of them are going to get that big. You got to think of the sample size that we get in the United States. You got to think about the genetics of the parents that we ended up getting, and then
Look at me
you
and
know.
Jake.
And I think that's, the genetic of the parents, that's always something I've always had in my head. And I think that plays way more of a role in animals than a lot of people realize. Cause
Oh
like
yeah.
you can, I see it. I've seen it in my collection with carpets. I'm looking at two males right now. They're both 2014 animals, and one male has a foot, maybe two on the other. They're both on the same feeding schedule. They're both the same age. They're both males, but one is substantially smaller. And I've also seen it with my females. I'm looking at two females here, each one about 6 foot. They're both, poplin carpets, each of them about 6 foot. That's a big poplin. My first the first carpets I ever bred, the female was maybe 4 foot.
Yeah, she was small. I remember
the
that
first carpet I ever bred was 4
Yeah.
foot, and that's about your average poplin carpet female, 4 to 5 foot. But I've got two monster girls here that are 6 foot plus, and that's just, they're not fed heavily. They never have been. Everybody knows me. I'm conservative with my feeding, especially with my carpets. And so it's like the genetics behind them and the parents and, the grandparents and the great grandparents, all that plays a huge part into how big an animal can get.
True.
But there's also limits. There's also limits to that. If you've got a poplin carpet that's 8 feet long, you're probably overfeeding.
Yeah, something went wrong there.
Like, that's just
genetic freaks.
Yeah, exactly. But so
that is the one thing that I'm confused about, because no one else in my family is as tall as I am. I think I was a test tube baby.
Recessive, man, is a recessive trait for you.
Maybe.
You were adopted.
I was birthed by a Sasquatch.
Yeah. It's funny. My dad and my mom are both like 5'6", and so when and I'm 6 foot tall, like 6 foot even. So when I stand next to them, I'm like a head over both of them, and people are like, "What's going? How did you end up so tall?" And it's like, my dad, all of his brothers are like 6'3". He just he was the firstborn, and he was the smallest. He's 5'6", 5'7". And my mom, all of her brothers are also right around that 6 foot mark too. So it just happened to line up that they were small, but they passed on that taller trait.
Yeah.
So could you say your dad got the short end of the stick?
Oh, he did, for sure. For sure.
No, that is like a good example of sort of one of the issues in the general hobby that I see, at least in the Facebook groups and stuff, is like somehow there's become a standard of size for different species.
It makes me angry.
Take your pick, and it's really frustrating because like corns, I had not that long ago, like I had a corn on Morph Market that was a 2021 baby, maybe a 22, and I think it weighed all of like 14 grams. Someone messaged me about it and was interested in it, and I waited for him because they asked me to, and I said sure. Sent them pictures of the scale with the snake on and everything, and they were like, "She seems kind of small for a 22." And I'm like, I explained, I was like, I don't feed the shit out of my animals. Like, there was nothing unhealthy about that snake. Perfect weight, perfect body tone, no issues whatsoever.
Bro, let me tell you,
because we have Facebook groups where people are screaming from the rooftops that this animal needs to be exactly
size in 2 years.
100 to 120 grams. Like, if it's not that, then that animal is unhealthy. That animal's sick. That animal's underfed. And I'm like, I just don't. It's like I don't feed my stuff. Even like my smaller stuff, I try to feed weekly, but for the most part, I don't feed my stuff weekly.
Yep.
Regardless of size.
And I think I really think that like pushing animals to get big quick is why we have a lot of animals die early. You know, I've had several people tell me, yeah, you know, a lot of my carpets just kind of die at around 10, you know, and I'm like, well, how fast did you get it up to adult size? Oh, it was breeding at
A
3
year
and
and
a
a
half
half.
years
Yeah.
old.
2
You
years
know,
old. Yeah.
my male was 2 when he bred, and I'm like, you know, I've got my 2020 carpets that I produced. Your average person would look at it and be like, oh, that's like a year and a half old, right? No. No, like they're small, man. You know, I don't, cause like, and I feed them. Yeah, I feed them every 2 weeks, sometimes 3. You know, and I get them a rodent that gives a small lump. You know, I don't shove anything huge down them, but you know,
Well,
it's
then
one of those things. My
it makes
stuff's
me like
small.
question myself for like a very brief second where I'm like, maybe these things aren't big enough. But then I'm like,
No, stop that.
no.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, no. I'm like, this is the problem. Like the Facebook groups, man, that's where I see it the most. Is like, it has
And
to
you
be
can-
if it's not this size by this age, that then you're doing something wrong. It's like maybe that's just the way it is. Like
And I don't
the
know.
extreme has become the norm for feeding and getting animals up to
Right.
size, and that's the biggest issue for me
It's
currently.
because everybody
state of
wants to
things.
breed as quick as they can.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's the biggest problem. It's not necessarily like, I wouldn't even say it's overfeeding as adults. I do think that is an issue, the overfeeding as adults, but I think getting animals to grow so fast is a detriment in the long run. Like it's not healthy. It's not good for them, you know.
When I think about corns too, you got to think about in the wild, right? They're not eating year round. Like we feed them year round in captivity because that's convenient for us. But a lot of people don't brumate their baby corns. Like, and I don't blame them because I would not want. I'm not really too keen about having a snake eat 3 times and then putting it in a cooler for 3 months. But like, so even if we're feeding more conservatively through the winter time, it's eating more than a wild corn snake would. And then you have to consider when that animal comes out of brumation in the wild naturally, how many times is it really going to have the opportunity to have a predation event? How often is it actually going to catch something that is appropriate size for it to be able to eat in that summertime? It's just got the summer,
a very short
maybe
window.
late spring to early fall, where it's going to be able to eat and find consistent food. And so it's only eating for a very small window of the year, and then it goes back down into hibernation. And so naturally, if you look at the snakes that we've got in captivity and compare them at the same age to snakes from the wild, I bet you, even if we feed super conservatively, captive snakes will almost always be bigger than their wild counterparts.
Yeah.
In almost every case.
I would say 100% of the time they're going to be bigger.
Yeah, but people will still look at that and be like, this is a 1-year-old corn snake. Why isn't it 2.5 foot long? And it's like, bro, they would never experience that in the wild. It's just not a thing. They would not be able to physically eat enough in their window of activity for them to be able to get that big in a year. It's just not feasible.
And I actually have the perfect example for that. In quarantine right now, I have 2 wild caught yellow rat snakes. Yep. One was wild caught the year it was born. Like it was still a black and gray baby, when it was caught. So that was fed, all that summer and through the winter. I have a female for that male that was caught the spring or summer after it was born. And so they're the same age, but one was in captivity for the year. The other was caught after its brumation in the wild. That female is half the size. Mm-hmm. It's at least a year old because it has its colors now. It's obviously bigger. It's obviously not a this year baby. It's obviously last year's, but it's half the size of the male because the male was fed all of that winter versus having that brumation. And when I say half, I mean literally half the size. One's easily eating fuzzies. One can barely take 2 pinkies.
And how much you want to bet that that other one, maybe it's not even, maybe you got it when it was already a year old because of brumation.
Yeah.
Or maybe it just didn't really get food when it first hatched out, There all these factors play into that.
Yeah. And that's actually one thing I'm going to start doing. I'm not doing it now simply because my brumation chamber is my garage. and dealing with more animals in the garage is something I don't want to do. But once I have a dedicated colubrid room, I plan on having a baby room to where, like, no, I don't really want to brumate babies right after they're born. It's not something I want to do. But after their first winter, they're going to get cooled every year.
See, you got the
until
gears
adulthood.
turning for me now, because now I'm curious if you do brumate babies, you know, the year they do hatch, you know, several months after they've hatched. Again, weighing them going into brumation, maybe weighing them during brumation, weighing them when they come out, and then weighing them when they first start getting those couple meals coming out of brumation, and subsequently seeing how that affects them and growth from there.
Yeah, one of the things I've seen is that some people who do gray band king snakes, they're like, oh, if your babies are not eaten after those first couple times, brumate them, let them go the winter without eating, and when they come back out, they are going to be wanting to eat something, and they're less picky when they come back out.
Right. And it kind of like that kind of thing kind of makes me wonder how many babies are actually eating, like in the wild. How many of them have actually eaten like at all before they brumate? You know, because there's always late clutches, you know, whether it be in captivity or the wild, there's always going to be late clutches. So how many are hatching in September
where they have the opportunity to get like one meal, maybe if they're lucky?
Maybe they found a baby at Knoll they can snag, and then they brumate right down. You know, like how often is that happening? We don't know.
Yep.
But I can tell you from the baby that I got that was caught this year, but it wasn't by me, it was by somebody else. I bought it off them. But I can tell you that baby that's for sure at least a year old is not much bigger than the white oaks I just hatched out. It's a little bigger, don't get me wrong, but it ain't by much.
Yep.
You know, like it's, you know, so it's just people need to get, you know, and again, I'm not judging anybody for what they want to do. You know, they're your animals. If you do whatever the hell you want to do, but I really think,
yeah,
exactly. I am. Don't worry about that. But it really makes me, I really wish more people would get out of the mindset of, I want this animal to breed. Obviously, all of us breed. All of us have snakes to breed. Not everybody, but most of you all listen to this do eventually have the goal to breed snakes. But like, I wish you would get out of the mindset of putting like natural behaviors before the breeding mindset, you know, like obviously
like going more by the natural history rather than what Facebook.
Right. And I'm not saying like your whole enclosure needs to be a piece of the wild. Obviously,
yes, it does.
Do that, that's awesome. Like, yeah, if you want to do that, that's awesome. I love it. But I am more of a behavior kind of guy, you know, little less feeding, more brumation as youngers. Again, like, and I say this, and I literally just said, I don't want to brumate babies. I don't, you know, like I'd rather get them going. If I have to brumate them as babies, I will. But after that first winter, eventually I want to cool every colubrid I have, you know, after that first winter, you know, and that's mostly just for my sanity, you know, but I think that could, and I think that'll play into longevity and better breeding, you know, like down the road, you know, healthier clutches, you know, snakes are going to live longer. They're not going to be as fat, you know. I think it'll help with a lot of things personally, but again, what do I know? It's just my thoughts, you know.
That's one thing that I really like about the scrub community as like a whole. Because I watch the scrub group. I really don't like posting in Facebook groups anymore, honestly, because the people who are interested in the stuff that I'm doing, they follow me. So I really don't need to post in any of those groups for someone to be like, what is you don't have a isopod colony in here? And I'm like, no, bro, I don't right now. Sorry. I'm a horrible keeper.
Terrible.
But like in the scrub group, I've seen more of a push for people who just like appreciate them because scrubs are so hard to breed. I see less people that are like, I'm going to come in here and breed a whole bunch of scrubs. It's people who are just like, Man, these
No,
snakes
those ones go to the chondro groups.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
Yeah, and I agree. I feel like the scrub corner is made up of a lot of people that just have them.
Yeah,
You
they
know,
just like
it's
them.
like
They
I'm
just think
not
they're
trying to
interesting.
breed. I just have a couple scrubs because I like them. You know.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of how I am. You know, I had the male southern for a while. Unfortunately, he did not vibe with my room very well at all. I don't know if he got NIDA when that whole thing ran about, you know, several years ago now. But he unfortunately passed on me. But I just liked having him, man. You know, he was a cool snake. And I hate that he didn't do well for me. But you know, they're just cool snakes to have, man. You know, and that's the other thing is like, you don't have to breed everything that you have, man.
For
you
real.
You can just enjoy it.
Wait, Justin, are you saying that if you get venomous, you're going to breed them?
That's different.
Or are you saying that you don't need to breed everything you keep?
What? Why don't you answer that for me?
What was the question? You broke up a little bit.
Yeah. You gonna breed pygmies?
I don't need to breed. I don't need to breed everything. I do want to get into venomous. I'm not intending on breeding any venomous. I just like them.
Yeah, for sure.
Preach.
Well, back on the scrub thing. My second question was, what's kind of your feeding regimen? Are you bigger
meals or
meals
small meals?
Yeah, big meals more often, smaller meals more frequently,
or both
or
at the same time.
And what's your or do you change? Yeah, do you change? Because I change it up with my carpets. You know, the other day, like 2 weeks ago, my girl I gave her one of Justin's colossal rats to two of my
those are baby capybara.
Yeah, they're huge, man. Like it looked like my two adult females ate a small football.
I can fit 3 of those in like a gallon size vacuum seal bag. That's how big they are.
They're huge, man. And so I fed them to my carpets 2.5 weeks ago ish, maybe 3. I literally I looked in here today and there's a massive turd from one of the girls. It took her that long to digest that thing because I was waiting.
You're welcome.
Where's the turd? And there's literally a poop in there bigger than what my dog poops out.
Yep.
And so I'm not gonna feed her for another at least a week or 2, let her sit on that. But of course right now she's up on her platform, head down, just waiting, I'm like, don't do it. I'm not doing it. So what's kind of your regimen, or do you change it up? Because like I said, I gave them those big ones, and then usually I feed them mediums, which doesn't even hardly leave a lump.
Yeah, I change it up a bit because I just think that that's more close to
natural.
what they're experiencing in the wild. Yeah, like a lot of these island species, they're experiencing times of the year where they're likely to have migratory birds come through where they have an abundance of food, and then they'll go through areas where it's a little bit cooler and they might not have access to food, or the prey items might not be ideal, like, or right size, quote unquote, for it's not thicker than the thickest part of the snake's body. So
some of these rules too, I wonder where like they came from. Like who came up with this shit?
Yeah. You're telling me my snake can't eat something smaller
in the wild? They're going, wait a second, I have to measure you. Wait, nope,
bro,
you're an eighth of an inch too big. You gotta go, buddy.
You're not 100 grams at least. You're out.
Back in the day, back when like YouTube was like 10 reptile or 30 reptile people on it or whatever, I posted a video. I had some extra rats that I had thought out, and they were like the snakes that were that small didn't want to eat them, and so I just had my ball pythons out. I was like, I'm just gonna go through and feed them. I'll do a quick little feeding video, and they're all frozen thawed, and so I just fed them, and it was like a crawler rat or something, but it's like a an adult ball python. And I go through and every comment, 40, 50, 60 comments of people being like, that's not a big enough rat to feed. Why are you feeding it that? And I'm like, it's not too big for it to eat. Like, it ate it. It was a small meal. Like, I can still feed it something smaller than the thickest part of its body. I guess I didn't read the rule book. I'm sorry. I didn't know.
You realize like too big is way more of an issue than too small.
Too small,
right?
yeah.
Too small is perfectly
There's gotta be some like some like invisible internet fairy or something that just whispers in people's ears. That's like, comment the dumbest shit you ever said in your life.
Yeah.
No,
Say
I think
something. Oh, here's a video. Say something real dumb.
you know what
fuck
it
this
is,
guy.
honestly, and this takes it out of the realm of reptiles. This takes it like into the realm of psychology. But I feel like a lot of people in their everyday life, they feel like they don't have a lot of influence. They can't change their fate. They can't change the things that happen in their daily life. And being able to comment on a YouTube video or an Instagram reel or a Facebook thread makes them feel like they are influencing the world in a way that they can have some control over their life or over somebody else's life.
Throwing those little digital pebbles at people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But
Take that.
it's just them, they're feeling like, hey, I don't really have enough control where I feel like I'm comfortable in what I'm doing in my life. And so I need to do something to assert my control over something else that's going on and feel like I'm in control of that. And I, at the end of the day, it doesn't bother me because like I've been doing this for so long and on social media and doing reptile stuff for so long that like when people comment stuff like that, I'm just like, okay, like cool.
Yeah.
Y-
Yeah.
You're not going to tell me, I've been keeping tarantulas for my entire life. Basically, my mom had
Yeah.
tarantulas before I was born. And so when I was a 2-year-old, I'd walk around with pink toes crawling all over me and stuff. And like, when I was setting up some tarantulas, I had some Eco Earth, I had some jungle mix, I had some cypress mulch. So I just kind of like mixed it all together and made some substrates. And it was going into stuff that was like real heavy webbers, so they're gonna web over it anyway.
Right.
And I took some pictures like with my camera, so like real nice close-up pictures of the tarantulas when they had just started webbing on stuff. And so many people were just like, cypress mulch on your tarantula.
Yeah.
What is fucking wrong with you? It's gonna die. It's
Why don't
sharp.
you just
Oh my
throw it
God.
in that pit from Mortal Kombat on that one
Yeah.
level where everyone falls and hits the
All
spike?
spikes, yeah. And they're like, it's when it molts, it's gonna get hurt. I'm like, it's a green bottle blue, man. It's not gonna touch anything but web for real. Like, it's okay. I promise.
I
A
promise.
Balfouri colony.
I didn't realize the forest floor was just made up of Eco Earth. I'm
Yeah,
so
yeah.
sorry. Like, Jesus
So
Christ.
when I see people that like comment and say stuff like that, I'm just like, you know what? I see that you need to say
You get what they're
something.
trying to do.
Yeah, I get what you're trying to do. And if I let it get under my skin every time that someone makes a comment like that, I would not be able to survive because
No, dude, you can't.
everyone's got an opinion. Everyone's got an opinion. Everyone wants to say their little piece, and that's fine. I mean, more power to them. And the people who comment, it creates engagement, and other people see your stuff, and then maybe it reaches somebody who needs to know the information that you're doing. Or that's like I posted a video shedding a snake that had a little bit stuck shed on it. And everyone's, you're hurting it. And it's a scrub python. So I'm like hand shedding it. And its head is on my hand, like just chilling. And they're like, you're hurting it right now. You're peeling it. And I'm like, let me tell you, if you are hurting a scrub python,
you're going to know.
Its head is not going to be gently sitting on your hand. It's going to be in your hand. Like,
yeah, no. And like that, I think that's where like me, like I'm not on social media a lot. I barely have enough time to get in the group chats, let alone deal with bullshit that people want to argue about. I've only had a handful of comments that are like, that's stupid, that's this, that's that. And I'm like, everybody's entitled to their own opinion, like have a good day, sir.
No response in my opinion.
But I'm also like, I'm the type of guy that if I see something that I don't agree with, then unless it's obvious, it's blatant that that's wrong, but if it's something that I've never seen and I don't really know that I agree with it, I ask them like, hey, what's your experience with this? You keep this tarantula on cypress mulch. How has that worked for you? Like a lot of people don't do that. I've heard this. What's your experience with it? Because there's all types of stuff out there going back for years and years of like, don't do this, don't do that. And then somebody does it and it's fine. So it's like,
a lot of that is one person has a bad experience, screams it from the rooftops, and then everyone else is like, it all of a sudden becomes like a rule.
Right.
like pine, like keeping
Exactly.
stuff on pine.
That's the I was going to use that example. Like, you know, everybody was like, no pine, no pine, no pine on colubrids. And then I talked to Chris Montross, and he's like, dude, I've been using pine for the last 20 years. Like, no problems whatsoever, you know? So it's like, there's always those things. But I didn't jump down Chris Montross's throat and be like, you're wrong. You can't use pine, you know? I asked
What do you
him,
know,
like,
Montross?
yeah, I'm like, so why do you use it? And like, what's like, have you had any issues with it? Like, have there been any problems whatsoever? You know, same thing with the mulch on your tarantula. It's like, you don't know until somebody does it and they actually inquire about it. Like, you know, I'm about to start using cypress mulch on a lot more colubrids.
Yeah.
That's one thing
I like cypress.
Yeah, I think I'm going to start applying it to a lot of my stuff, you know, because I like the look of it. I like the feel. And I think I'm gonna start using it in a lot more racks and just see how it goes, you know. Like I used pine bark in the quarantine stuff just to try it out. I don't love the pine bark because water just goes right to the bottom and it doesn't absorb anything, and it is a bitch to clean up if they spill any water, you know. But I kind of want to get away from aspen because, like, I don't like, because a lot of my snakes spill water, you know, and I can't clean it up perfectly every single day. Like, it's just a fact, you know, I don't always get to it. So I'm thinking about switching to cypress. So if there is a spill, it's not as big of a deal. I don't have to worry about mold. I also want to use cypress because, like, my room we are a very humid state. South Carolina is very, very humid. But my room gets a little dry because of my space heater, and sometimes I get bad sheds from my animals. I'm like, why is this happening? So I'm kind of getting to the point to where, like, yeah, I have humid hides, but I kind of want to axe humid hides and start using more cypress mulch. So while they're in shed, I can just give them a spray.
Down, yeah.
You know, just give them a spray, because you realize it rains.
For real.
It rains here. Everybody's like, oh, don't spray down your rat snakes. Why?
I think about that constantly,
You know,
how we've got these animals in boxes and they have never felt raindrops on them.
Yes.
And,
like,
you know, a lot of the stuff we keep is tropical, or at least the stuff that I keep is tropical.
Right.
And they would experience that on a very, very regular basis. It's very,
and so exactly, like, I want to start using a substrate that I can spray down just to emulate some type of rain or a wet period. I'm not saying keep your freaking yellow rat in a swamp, but I have found lots of yellow rats very close to a swamp.
Yeah.
You know, like, I live in a swamp. I have found a ton of yellow rats right outside of it or even in it, you know? So it's like one of those things. I want a substrate because I'm not going to wet down a bunch of aspen.
No,
you know,
that's a bad idea.
I want a substrate that I can give them a spray down while they're in a shed and stop using all these humid hides that make a big old mess.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying humid hides are bad. You know, I like mine, but they're just not very convenient, especially when they poop in them. Because when they poop in them, I feel obligated to change the entire thing because they're sitting in it and it's a wet substrate.
See, that's what's interesting, because now that I think about it, with all the stuff that I had human hides with, I don't think any of them have ever actually gone in the human hide, like actually gone to the bathroom.
That you've seen. You mean like poop in it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, they're in it all the time, but I've never actually seen one like I've never had one go to the bathroom in it.
Dude, I made
Maybe
that
I'm
mistake.
Lucky. I trained mine.
I made that mistake with one of my carpets. So my carpets have humid hides, and I noticed, like, I hadn't changed the paper on this girl for a while because she hadn't shit, and I was like, "What's going on here?" And I looked at the humid hide. I was like, "I wonder." And I opened up the humid hide. There's like
you turned it into a damn nightmare
sitting in there, and I'm like, "Well, this is absolutely
an outhouse
disgusting."
now.
Yeah. So, but all of my stuff uses their humid hides for a toilet. And I'm like, it's annoying.
I'd rather they use a water bowl.
I mean, I don't, because for me, I just put my water dishes in the dishwasher. They all get new water dishes every week. So that's not a problem.
Having to replace sphagnum and stuff every time they do it is annoying.
Yeah, it's a waste of money.
That's what I'm saying. So
especially if you're using the good stuff.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing, is often as my stuff is in a humid hide, I'm like, kind of seems like they like humidity. So might be worth having a substrate that I can spray down, you know, once every 2 weeks or once a week, to give them that type of a rain feel. So I don't know, man. There's so many things that I'm like, why do we do this?
Yeah.
Like, obviously, some stuff you got to keep them dry. They're a desert species. That's one thing. But
what's your thoughts on the whole like enrichment thing, Rob?
How do you mean? Do you mean like give them a ball to play with, or you mean like actual enrichment? Because there's some people who are like, I have to give it a blanket to sleep with, and that's enrichment. And I'm like, I don't.
I mean the whole thing. So like, I am not against it, but I think it doesn't have to be the over the top. Like, I'm gonna make a room-sized jungle gym for my corn snake, and I'm just gonna leave it in there for half a day and then come and hunt for it later. Like, to me, enrichment can be small. Like, it doesn't require much. You don't have to do a whole lot to get the gears turning. Like sometimes I'll just take some bedding from one tub and put in another, and that snake will sit there and stare it down and try and figure it out for hours. But it's like, you see it now and people think that's like, I have to put it in a hamster wheel.
Yeah, for real.
It's not enrichment if it's not on a hamster wheel.
Yeah, I can't wait until they start getting those little talk buttons, and we can get snakes to press the talk buttons. It's like outside.
The ball python goes to the one that says tree.
Tree. Wet season.
Termite mound.
Yeah. Termite mound. All joking aside, I think that there are lots of easy ways to do enrichment. A lot of people think that enrichment is like, they think of like primate enrichment, where it's like using tools and blah, 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 blah. Where for snakes, I think that that sort of stuff is not really applicable. And then also, if you go too extreme with enrichment, you can cause stress, and we don't want to stress our animals out. Like that, none of us wants to stress our animals out, except for people who keep cobras. They do want to stress themselves out, but that's besides the point. Doing enrichment for your snakes can be as easy as going outside, getting some oak leaves or any non-pine leaves, getting them, putting them on a sheet, baking them for 5 minutes at 300 degrees or whatever. Don't set your house on fire, but bake them for a little bit so there's no bugs in them. Let them dry off or cool off. Take a handful of leaves, pop them in the corner of the enclosure. I guarantee you most species of snakes are going to go over it and investigate and check it out and smell it all over, up and down, turning through those leaves and just checking it out. That is enrichment.
Dump right on it.
Probably. They're like, this does not smell like home.
Right away.
Yeah, this does not smell like home. This is now my territory.
This belongs to me.
So that is a super easy way for people to be able to do something easy for enrichment that most people have access to. People in the desert might not be able to do that, but anywhere on the eastern seaboard, you can do that shit.
You can still take a rock and do the same thing.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Rocks, sticks, you can do all that sort of stuff.
Something new, something novel. Like,
I like sheds. If you get a shed, take it from one enclosure, throw it in another one. The only time that you can't really do that is with adult males. You can end up doing some bad stuff. My male sarong barneck is a wuss. He is the biggest baby on the planet because he was not breeding with my females when I was expecting it. He locked up once and then he was like, okay, I'm done. That's it. I'm not going back to it. And I was like, I would like to see at least a little more action. I want to make sure that this deal is sealed. And so I have a big male Highland scrub and Oxabil. And so when he shed, I took his shed and just threw it in there. And I was like, oh, he's just going to smell it and everything will be cool. As the moment that he smelled that other male's skin, he boom hits the front of the enclosure, takes off running back and forth, pressing on the glass, trying to get out, losing his absolute mind. I had to take a sheet, put it over the front of the enclosure, darken out the whole room. And he went on for probably, because I had to pull the shed out too. He went on for probably almost 30 minutes of just him freaking out, losing his mind, trying to get away from that shed. And this is this was the second time that I had introduced like another male scent with him, because when my females are cycling, my male Highland goes crazy. He gets right up to the edge of the enclosure. He's pressing on every corner, trying to get out. I can tell exactly when all my females are cycling.
Right.
And so to try and get that other male to breed, like what, so let me take a step back here. In order to get him to stop being a dink and like ruining his, because he was pressing to the point where he was getting a bump on the front of his nose, and I really hate that when they do that.
Yeah.
So what I did is I pulled the female out of her enclosure. I set her up in a holding container. I opened up his enclosure. I opened up her enclosure, and he immediately went and started smelling and went right into her enclosure. I let him go all the way in there, swapped out their water dishes, closed him into her enclosure, put her into his enclosure, and left him like that for a week. And he completely stopped pushing after I did that.
Wow.
I don't know why. He never experienced the female. He was never with the female, but just being in the area, being able to smell where she was hanging out was enough, where he would stop pushing. And so after that, I put them back into their respective enclosures, put their water dishes back to their respective enclosures, and put the male Barneck in with the female Barneck. And again, he wasn't really doing anything. And so the male Highland started pushing again. So I opened up both doors and let him smell inside of the enclosure with the female and the male in it. As soon as that male, the wuss one, smelled that other male in there, he did the same thing where he freaked out, started taking off, running. So now I've got two 11-foot scrubs trying to run across my living room, and I've got to try and wrangle one scared male and one male that's really interested in breeding. And it was just like, okay, I don't need to do that with him ever again.
Yeah.
It got him to breed, but like, I don't need to do that again. But just that, think about if you put it in with a female, a shed from a male in with a female, it can get that interest going. Sheds are relatively low risk, in my opinion, as far as, prospective pathogens and stuff, as long as it's dry. I would think that it would be a little bit safer than using substrate or stuff, but there's lots of different ways to do enrichment without it being, a hamster wheel or whatever. And one real quick, I wanted to hop back. You asked me about feeding large prey items versus small prey items.
Yeah, I never got to that.
I do most of my stuff on big prey items less frequently. So I'll give them, something good size that leaves a decent size lump in them. But caveat to that is during the summertime, I will feed them much more frequently. Every couple weeks, every week or two, depending on age and all that different factors and stuff. So I'll feed everything more heavily during the summertime, space it way, way back on the winter time, to the point where, maybe once a month.
Mm-hmm. Right.
If that.
Do you cut off food like during breeding season, like, kind of like a carpet would?
The window for scrubs for me is really small. It's literally they start being active in April, and they breed April and May, and that's it. Okay. That's the only window that I've seen them interested in breeding. And I've tried pairing throughout the year, multiple females with, different, just trying and seeing where everything's at. My window for me, how I run things, April to May. As soon as we get into April, they start becoming interested. As soon as the end of May, not interested anymore.
Yeah.
Is that mostly like female receptive?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
And then also, scrubs are weird because females can go through their reproductive cycle to the point where most snakes will ovulate. Like when I was at Nerd, I had access to a ultrasound. And so we would ultrasound ball pythons and monitors and all sorts of stuff. And so when I bred Janet the last year that I was there and the year before, I was ultrasounding her at every point to see where she's at in follicle development. And most pythons, when they reach that like 35 millimeter follicle size, they like boom, triggers ovulation. If you see a female at 35 millimeters, there's going to be eggs. I ultrasounded her at I think 36 or 37 millimeter follicles. So I was like, okay, deals, it's sealed. I'm going to see eggs. And she reabsorbed. And I can't tell you how many people who do scrubs that I've spoken to or seen where they get a female, she blows up huge, like she's loaded full of eggs. It feels like she's got these big, giant follicles in her, and then no eggs. So it seems that between Boland's pythons and scrub pythons, they can go further into their reproductive cycle while still choosing not to ovulate and not produce eggs. Where most every other snake, you get them at 35 millimeter follicles, you're gonna see eggs.
Does that seem the case with Clastolepis?
There's so few people who have bred them.
What do you? I mean, what do you think why do you think Clastolepis has become so challenging for folks?
I don't think that it's I don't want to say that. They are challenging. I think that the biggest issue is that there haven't been a lot brought in with importation and exportation quotas. When stuff is not in demand, you guys already know this, but I'm explaining this for listeners. When stuff is not in demand, the quotas get cut down and cut down and cut down and cut down. I remember 15 years ago going to a reptile expo and seeing a 7-foot long Moluccan scrub for $350 or $400, and no one would buy it because people were looking at it. They're like, that is a big freaking scrub python. I am not getting bit by that thing. And it just sat there the whole show. I don't even think they sold it at the end of the show at $300 because people were just like too afraid of them.
Right.
And I think that with the shift in how people look at keeping and how people look at big snakes and all this and that, and the other thing, over the last 10 years, people have been like, I can do a 10-foot scrub python. That, a lot more people are comfortable with that idea than there were back then. And the emphasis has shifted from, that was back when ball pythons were just, hitting that crest, getting up to that really popular point. And so I think the deal with Clastolepis is that they were not popular enough. Their numbers for exportation got cut down and cut down and cut down and cut down till it was basically nothing. We saw a huge lack of them coming into the country. The people who have got them are not breeding them, either from not figuring out the key triggers that they need to, or having a bad male or a bad female or whatever. That's not even relevant really. But there's not a lot of people who have them. First off, there's less people who are successful with breeding them, and they're not being imported in any sort of numbers where people who are consistently good at breeding things that are tougher are able to have access to them. And the demand has been higher for Barnecks and for, and for Halmaheras for a while, and, these other things. And so the numbers were just not coming in. And then now that's just starting to change. But we saw Marcel Hawkins was able to produce a clutch of Clastolepis a couple of years ago, maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's been probably 2 years.
Right around there.
Yep.
He was able to produce them, but I don't think that he had those scrubs for like a really long time before he produced them. Because I had talked to him a little bit back and forth back around when he had acquired them. And so my thought process is that if we are able to get more into the US, or the people who have got them make a more concerted effort to breed them, I don't think that they're going to be as hard as some of the other species. I think that they're still difficult. Like, don't get me wrong, all scrubs are not easy to breed. You're not going to have someone who has bred, only native snakes, and then they get a scrub python and they're going to like do it their first year. It's just, they're not like that. But I think that if there are people who are keyed into some of the more unusual pythons, and they're really keyed into their specific animals, I think that they're potentially breedable. I mean, we're going to see, because he produced a whole ton of them, a good amount of them. And there's very capable people who have got some of those babies.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure in, 4, 5, maybe 6 years, we'll see some people producing them. I'm excited for that point because I really want some, but like,
so
it is what it is.
I have a theory that I want your take on. Now, this is just me thinking. I don't say this is fact. But I think for a lot of species that people have a hard time breeding, whether it be scrubs, bolins, some, really rare colubrid. I think I think part of the problem is a lot of people will try something different every single year. And I think that causes issues. I think if you look at, if you know the natural history, you know what time they should be breeding, you know about this and that, whether it be your feeding schedule, when you cool, how long you cool, all that. I think a problem comes into play when you're doing something different every single year. There's no repetition. It's constantly something different. So I think that prolongs the period. I think if you see something that looks valuable, like, you get one copulation, try that same method for 2, maybe 3 years. And then if that doesn't work, try something different. But I think that a lot of issues come into play when you're doing something different every single year. You're only prolonging the problems. Does that make sense? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think that there are people who try a whole bunch of different things, and yeah, I think that can impact how successful you are with your animals. But honestly, what my thing is like, if you've got a rarer species that you're working on, something that's tougher to breed, every person who has Bolin's pythons who is attempting to breed them should have their own personal ultrasound. It's $800. You spent however many $1,000 on your snake, buy an $800 ultrasound your female every 3 weeks, see where her natural cycle is in your room, how you do things. Watch it throughout the year, because you've got 4 years at least until she breeds. Just ultrasound her. Literally, it's not impossible to do. It's not impossible to learn. Ultrasounds are very accessible now, where they were not accessible 5 or 10 years ago. There's one that we used at Nerd was $800. So, under $1,000, great ultrasound. See exactly where your female's follicles are at throughout the year. It'll give you a better idea of when you should be engaging and things. And then also, watch your males, because like I was saying, my male Highland, anytime my female, as soon as the moment that she started to cycle, he started going off. And I'm keyed into that. I'm watching him. I'm going, okay, look, I see my females naturally start to cycle in April and May. Boom, second week of April, my male is losing his mind. I wonder why that could potentially be.
Yeah,
they're gonna pick up on that shit way better than we are. So, like, who am I to say, oh, well, the breeding season doesn't start for blah, 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 blah. I'm watching my animals, and they're saying it's breeding season right now. I need to do something about it.
Right.
And honestly, for like I said, the scrubs and the bolins and stuff, they can reabsorb much later than a lot of other species can. But for a lot of species, if you can catch your females in the like 20 millimeter to 30 millimeter area and get your males in there in that window, you are going to see really good, like, I shouldn't say you will really see, but you're much more likely to see better success rates with your breeding seasons if you're paying attention to that sort of thing. And with the technology that we have today, it makes it much more easy than how we had it 10 years ago or 20 years ago or whatever. And so I think that there are ways that we can be more efficient about this. Here's the deal. I just said that everyone who's got bolins and people who are breeding scrubs, if they want to be more successful about it, they should buy a ultrasound. I don't have an ultrasound right now. I don't. I just produced my second clutch of scrubs, and I don't have an ultrasound. I don't have a huge group of animals. I watch my animals religiously. I let them tell me when things are going to go down. And I just know my animals. I've had Janet for 8 years now, 9 years, something like that. I've had my Jayapura female that just laid the clutch of eggs. I've had her for 4 years now. So I've got 4 years of watching these animals. and keying into where they go throughout the year. And so I feel like when I've got a small sample size and I'm able to look at how my animals interact throughout the year, I feel like I'm pretty well tuned into that. But for people who maybe aren't, or they are, trying things and it's not working, that ultrasound is an invaluable tool. It's accessible. Don't get me wrong, $800 is still a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. Yeah.
Whatever animals you produce this year, invest $800. You have that ultrasound for the next 10 years and you'll have 5 times more success in your breeding.
Yeah.
You'll make your money back if that's really the way that you want to look at this. Or even if you just want to be like, I just want to be successful working with this one species. If you've tried things and it doesn't work, try something else. Try the ultrasound. I feel like you're saying that people will swap things up every year when they're trying things. I think that could play a potential role, but I think that almost just every species of python has been bred now, right? Like there's been several people who have bred Tracy Eye. Owen Pelly have been bred over in Australia. Everything's been done, right? So there is someone who has done what you're trying to do before.
Right. Yeah. No.
Find that person, talk to them, see what the heck they did.
Yeah. No.
For real.
I agree. I more so like went by like I'm more so talking like a consistency for the animal. Know where they're from, know the temperatures that they're going to experience, know what they're doing. Don't go into it being like, okay, I'm going to try pairing in the winter. Oh, that didn't work. Now I'm going to try pairing in the summer. Like there has to be some type of consistency.
There has to be consistency,
like because otherwise you're just going to fuck everything up. Like their mind's not going to be right for it.
Here's the deal, right? So we're talking about consistency. I bred Janet the year that I moved, the winter after I moved. So she went from a 3-foot enclosure that I had at Nerd to down here. I set her up in a 4-foot enclosure, lots of branches and stuff, completely new enclosure. She was in that enclosure for 6 months before she started breeding. Nice. And then she laid eggs right after. So she was not even in that enclosure for a full year when I had reproduced with her. And then my Jaipura now has been in that enclosure for a year and a half, almost 2 years, when she reproduced in there.
Right.
Did everything handle the move overall pretty well? Everything kind of adjust and settle in pretty well?
Some stuff did, some stuff didn't. Like it was real hit or miss, because like some stuff I was like, oh, everything went kind of chill. And then I, had some stuff just drop out of nowhere. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, and there could be any number of factors that went into that. It could have been stress. It could have been, any number of things. I think that moving is something that is incredibly stressful on these animals, and moving them from one environment to another, even just the area where I had set things up, because like the room that I've got my snakes in right now has got giant bay windows in it, and it lets in so much light during the daytime. And so they get so much natural photo period. Even the stuff that's in racks just gets so much light in during the daytime. And then they naturally get a ramp down around sunset. And that was very different from the place that I was keeping them at when I was living in New Hampshire. So it's just like little things that can change, that can throw them off. And it's hard to say.
Sometimes obviously it can help, it seems like that environment was a lot more ideal for Janet.
Absolutely.
Being, she was set up correctly. That photo period probably helped a lot, and I think being, they come from a tropical environment. I think being, where you are in the U.S. will determine how successful you are with certain things. And I think stuff like scrubs, I think people in the Southeast would be a little bit more successful than people in Wisconsin, like
potentially,
I'm not saying that's definitely a thing, but, I think it can help, like just being in a more natural climate, if you're
air humidity and everything.
Right. Yeah. If you're not actually, because if I'm in Wisconsin and I'm trying to breed scrubs, I'm going to have a humidifier in the room, just kind of stuff like that. You know, if you're not dialing in your room to be more natural than being, you know, in an area that is more natural than, or at least, obviously this isn't fucking Indonesia, but you know, it's just, it's different, you know.
Feels like it.
Right.
Yeah, sometimes it definitely feels like it.
Right now it does, that's for sure.
Yeah, sitting right on the equator, you're just like sweating your nuts off, like just dying.
Yeah. I mean, that's really why I keep all the stuff I do. Pretty much everything I have except my Texas rats and my fox snakes and, you know, some of my pines. Other than that, everything else is southeastern.
Yeah.
You know, I have New Jersey Northerns and I have black pines, but
I have a question for you.
Okay.
Would you consider setting up an outdoor enclosure to do some of your snakes outside, at least for part of the year, do them outside and let them kind of do their thing?
I've thought about it. Yes. The only thing that, like, I would do it part of the year. Yeah. But the reason that I wouldn't do outside normally is because they wouldn't have access to the things they would if they were loose. You know, I don't think outdoor enclosures are as black and white, like, oh, they're from here, they can live outside. If they're living outside, they have, in the wild, they have access to a lot more micro habitats.
Yeah.
You know, be able to get under this certain set of leaves. They have this, you know, gopher tortoise burrow that they can go into to get cool. If you just have them set up in a cage outside, they don't have access to that stuff, and they could potentially just bake when it's 100 degrees, because you're not going to find a rat snake just chilling on the blacktop when it's 110 out.
Oh yeah,
you know, because they're hot, you know. So like part of the year, yeah, no doubt, for sure I would. But dead summer, absolutely fucking not.
Yeah.
So
not me.
And I've actually thought about like down the road, if I can create some type of sunroom and have screens, then I would be more out to do something more like that, and just have like more natural airflow through it and kind of just let the temperatures do their thing. I've even thought as going as far as, you know, having, you know, really deep substrate enclosures, and then during the winter, leaving everything open, letting that cold air come through, and then making burrows underneath that, and then putting like a light heat pad under all of that, so they can get to where, like, yeah, it's freezing up here, but they get down to where this heat pad is in this burrow, it's around that 55
heat cable, man.
degree. Yeah, you know, something like that, you know, to where they have those freezing temperatures up top, but naturally they're underground, you know, and actually make it to where they can get underground in their enclosure.
Yeah, so I've been thinking about it, and I'm like, man, I would love to set up some scrubs in an outdoor screened enclosure, and just like, you know, you don't have to do everything, you know, whatever, like, but I would just love to see a scrub perched up in a, you know, with a whole bunch of branches in it and stuff. My thing that makes me think that I might not want to do it is ticks and
raccoons, man.
Raccoons are the reason I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, set booby traps around him. Come on, man. Like,
I don't know, man. I've
spikes a little, you know,
I've seen what they can do to a chicken. And
that's fair.
Like, I mean, a scrub, I wouldn't worry about a raccoon as much.
I don't know, man.
Because like that
scrub's gonna pull the whole raccoon through the screen.
Yeah, the scrub's gonna eat that sucker, you know. But like something smaller, nah, man.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Yeah. I've been thinking about it recently, and I'm like, you know, trying to think of what my ideal reptile room would look like. And I've just like literally today I was thinking about if I had my scrubs set up with big enclosures around, you know, 2 walls or something, I would love to be able to have a section of the room that's got big branches across the upper area, where, you know, every 2 weeks I swap which one's out, so it gets to experience the whole room and gets to climb across the branches and pick the area where it wants to hang out, and gets, you know, we were just talking about enrichment, being able to choose where it wants to hang out in the room and get to explore a little bit and see all the other enclosures and stuff like that. It's just like, I was thinking about that today, and I was like, man, I would love to do something like that in the future. And I think about outdoor enclosures too sometimes, and I was like, I went to Tom Crutchfield's place, and he does just about all of his non-venomous stuff outside, and seeing diamond pythons perched up, like, it's 90 degrees out or whatever. I think it was a cooler day that we were there, but
Right.
they're sitting wide out in the open, just perched up, and Timor pythons perched up.
Yeah.
And, just seeing that those creatures, just, people think about diamond pythons, they're like, oh, they need to be cold all the time.
Right.
And he's temp gunning them, and their bodies are like 100 degrees and they're like still basking. I'm like, dude, that's wild. And I don't know. I've just been thinking about it recently, and I'm just curious what you think.
I've thought about it a lot too, but for me, it would be more so like put it out in the morning, take it back in at night type of thing.
I do
set up a mist system on it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That is a very serious concern.
That's
very serious. One. Down here, it's crazy, man. Like New England, you don't really see fire ants like that. But man, when I came down here, they're everywhere. The parking lot at the grocery store, you're driving down the road, you're looking at a field, and there's just giant mounds of fire ants all over the place. Dude,
we had some family. This was years ago. We had some family come down from Wisconsin, and you go to Wisconsin, there ain't no such thing as fire ants up there, and we told them, we were like, if you step in somewhere and your foot sinks, get out of there quick as you can. And dude, it was not even 2 days. I walked out, and my cousin's on the ground just freaking out, wiping his feet. And I'm like, fire ants? He's like, yeah, dude, I don't know what to do. I was like, wash them off, my guy. Like,
for real.
We've all made that mistake. No, there's, and I'm not gonna say who it is just because I don't know if he wants me sharing this, but I have a very good friend of mine who had one of his monitors outside for a period, and everything was fine as far as temperatures went, but he had a raccoon break the enclosure and actually ripped her a massive gash in her side. Like,
dude, those things are so stupid strong, it's insane. People really don't realize just how hardcore those things are.
And this was like a full-blown monitor. Like, this wasn't a baby, this was like a 4 or 5 foot animal. Like, and it ripped a hole in its stomach, and like, it's
not even from the aspect of like the safety of the animal, but more so also a concern that they would somehow break in, and then you now have an area of opportunity for whatever's in there getting out.
That too. Raccoons, man,
raccoons and fire ants are why
the raccoons can get into anything, man. They're insane. They can fit their heads through they're kind of like snakes in the fact that if you think, oh, something won't get out of that, they will.
They will.
They will. If you even think they might, they probably will. And so it's one of those things. Like, that's my biggest thing. That's why, like, I do want to set up an outdoor enclosure one day. Something that experiences, like, sun at one point, shade during another. And like I said, just kind of leave them out for the day to get, good sun, big enclosure, lots of branches, let them, chill, go around, all that. But I could never do it full time, unless it was completely bricked in, I had concrete walls all around, where nothing can get in, then, maybe. But again, in South Florida would be a little different because they don't really get the temperatures that we do during the winter. But like, if you have that, you have to have some type of warm hide, because like we get freezing temperatures, and you're in North Carolina, you guys definitely get freezing temperatures.
Oh yeah.
So it's like down here, like, it's not as cold as North Carolina, but we definitely have, a couple days out of the year that it gets to 32 and below, into the teens sometimes. And so it's like one of those things that if they're out there they couldn't be out here year round if they don't have some type of burrow to get warm. And, it's just.
You want to hear something absolutely insane? I work pest control, and I go to lots of people's houses all the time. I see lots of cool reptiles when I'm out there doing things. I went to this house in my town, and there was a French drain, and I looked down in the French drain, and there's a box turtle stuck in this French drain.
No way.
And it's not in the portion that's like the bucket of the French drain. It's stuck in the tube of the French drain.
Oh God.
So I go to my van. This was last fall. So this was like October or something, September, October. So I go to my van, I grab the stuff, I pop off the screen off the top of it, the grate or whatever, pull it off. I go in, I try and grab the box turtle and pull it out, but it's just big enough where the coupling for the tube is like smaller than the actual tube itself. And so the box turtle's shell will not fit out of this tube. So I'm like, this tube is 60 feet long. I'm not pushing it back out the other way.
Right.
So I go to the homeowner. I talk to them. Hey, there's a box turtle in there. I'm really concerned about it. If you could do something about it, get it out. The guy's, oh yeah, cool. Thank you for telling me. I'll do that. Put the grate back on. Okay, cool. I did not go back to this house again for the winter time, but we had that Arctic blast that I think you guys got to, where it was 9 degrees for 2 weeks of below freezing temperatures, right? I think the warmest it got was like 28 degrees here.
Right.
It was cold, really cold.
Yeah, we got it too.
This spring, I go back to that same house.
No
and
way.
Dude, if I'm lying, I am dying, because I went back there and I was like, I wonder if that dude got that box turtle out. And this is after that Arctic blast that we got, right? I come back to that French drain. I look inside. The box turtle is still in there, and the box turtle is still alive in there, bro. I lost my mind. I was freaking out, man, because I was just like, I was like, we just had 10-degree weather, and this thing is sitting in water in a tube with no leaves, no nothing protecting it. And it survived. And what was it eating? What was it subsisting off of? Just water? And so this was in early spring, late winter. And so I went to the dude's wife and I was like, hey, I brought her out there. I was like, hey, look, I told your husband about this the last time I was out here in fall. There's a box turtle trapped in your French drain out here. It has been in here since October. Please do something about it. Like, I'm not held. I can't be liable to cut this thing out of your drain, but you need to cut it out of your drain. Like, it's stuck in there. It's been in there. I talked to your husband about it, talked to him about it because I told him about it. I went back there 3 weeks ago and the box turtle was not there. So I don't know if it went further into the drain and died or what the hell happened, but I've been there a couple times since then and it's not there anymore, but it survived.
That's wild.
9
Crazy,
degrees,
man.
no cover, no leaves, in water. Insane.
How deep into the ground was the drain? Because I know exactly what a French drain is. It's like a tube that goes down about. Oh, so it wasn't even far.
It was not far. It was like maybe a foot deep, 14 inches deep.
Yeah.
And then the tube, it was at the bottom. So,
it's freaking crazy.
The top of its shell was maybe 7 inches below the surface, if that.
Wow.
Wild. Absolutely wild. And it survived that. So when we think about like how fragile our animals are, man, I just think about stuff like that. And I'm like granted, turtles are way more durable than a lot of other, than snakes.
Right.
But Arctic blast, 9 degrees, like we literally had, sub 10-degree temperatures overnight.
Yeah.
And this turtle survived that, man. That is absolutely insane that it survived that and was alive and alert. And when I pulled that top off the drain, when I came back in the springtime, it was moving around and looking and it was alert. It was there.
I believe it, man. I think if anything would survive something like that, it's a box turtle. Because that sucker probably closed up in its shell, got nice and tight in there. And, it almost works as like an insulation.
To shut itself down,
just
man.
Like shut down and, rock and roll, baby,
Yep.
That's crazy, man. I absolutely love box turtles. They're some of my
It's
favorite
been a trip.
find.
It's been a trip, man, because in New England they're endangered. So I had never found one until I moved down here. And then now I see them like once a week. Like they're all
Yeah.
over the freaking
really?
place. They're
Dude,
everywhere, man.
I gotta send you pictures of the one. So like we had Jack Oliver on, and we were talking turtles the entire time. And
Yeah.
I had just talked about like, oh, I haven't seen a box turtle in 2-3 years. Like it's been a while. I hadn't seen one in a long time. The day after our episode, I found a box turtle on a job site that I was walking. I was doing an initial inspection on a job that hadn't started yet. There was a box turtle within the silt fence, and I was like, "Oh fuck yeah!"
Yeah.
Dude, this thing like was almost hypo. Like
Damn.
it had no pattern on it, but it was the brightest orange.
Yeah, we get some screamers here, man.
I've ever seen, man. Its face, like I couldn't get a picture of its face. But its face was like almost a cream color with the orange patterns on its head. And like, it was the craziest looking box turtle I've ever seen. Like,
What part of town was it?
That was down Kalawasi Drive.
Okay.
It was in Hayward Point.
Yeah. Yep.
It was in Hayward Point. So it's Okatee. Okatee. But yeah, no, that was super cool. Yeah, dude, I love box turtles. They're a neat animal, man. Yeah, and it's funny. Sure. So I actually brought it outside. I took it outside of the silt fence because they were about to go clear the lot, and I was like, this thing's gonna get crushed. So I brought it outside of the silt fence, and I walked the site to check all the silt fence out. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna go back over there and find it and see if its head's poking out because I really wanted a picture of its face. I went back to where I found it or where I put it. It was gone. I was like, where the hell is this thing? Kept looking around. I finally found it again. It had already buried itself under the pine straw. I barely saw any of it poking out of the pine straw, but completely buried itself under the straw. Could not find it anywhere. I just happened to see it at this perfect angle to where I saw under the pine straw and got a bit of it. It was great. And that was in like 5 minutes.
Damn.
Yeah.
Like it had done all that. Like
ecologically, like one of the coolest species I think of heard in North America.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. Just such a cool species. I love finding them. I don't see too many here. I found a handful semi recently within the last couple months, here, and it's just such a cool species,
Light rain, man. If you go out when there's a light rain going, they're booking, man, across the roads, moving around. I don't know what it is, but like there's one that lives on my road, man. Dude. They can boogie. Man. It's pretty cool.
Oh man, I wish we're already at our 2-hour mark, but we got to get you back on and talk some herping, man, because you've done a whole lot more of that recently since you've been in the Southeast, and I wanted to. I meant to get into that a little bit before the end of the show, but
that's okay. Yeah, right now, like we are in what is it? The second week of July, almost third week of July. Right now is baby lizard hatching season because this week I've seen 20 little 5-line skinks that are an inch and a half long with this neon tail. And dude, it's so weird because what they do is when they see that you're looking at them, they walk with their legs low, but they lift their tail up in the air, like point their tail up and then wag their tail back and forth. I've never freaking seen that before. It is so cool.
Yeah.
And then today I saw baby anoles too. So I was just like, man, it's hatching time right now.
I've been seeing a ton of adults recently too, man. Like we have a ton of them. Do y'all have broadheads up there?
Yes.
Dude, I have been seeing so many broadheads recently. Like, I don't know what it is. I hear them on the silt fence all the time whenever I'm on job. I hear just like running across the side because they'll hide up kind of like if the top of it's down, it'll make like a flap and they hide in those flaps of the silt fence. And I see them around my house all the time. There's anoles everywhere, but I'll be damned if I can't find a snake right now.
Last year I saw one broadhead, and then this year I've seen like 30 of them. I don't know what it is about this year, but there's broadheads everywhere right now.
Awesome. There's a little group that lives in this pile of sticks I have next to my car. So every day when I get home and I hop out, I hear a female scurry away. Sometimes I'll see her basking, but it's funny because like they get their little like areas, man, and like, they're always there hanging out. There's a group that lives in this like half dead tree in my backyard too. There's like a male and like 3 females, and it's fun to go back there and watch them sometimes because they'll just be chasing each other around, and they're funny to watch.
I can't wait until someone. Sorry, one little thing. I can't wait till someone gets a breeding colony or several breeding colonies of broadheads and 5-lines and selectively breeds for adult 5-lines that have got neon blue tails and then broadheads that have got a neon red head that goes down to their body. I'm just waiting because in Europe, I bet you they would lose their fucking minds for these freaking skinks because they got these neon blue tails and they're just cool as shit. They're active and interactive. So
I can't believe nobody's really done anything with them. I have a buddy that's like, yeah, dude, you want to catch me some broadheads? I'm like, you can come see me and try, but
for real.
Good luck, my guy. Those things are fast.
They hurt.
Yeah, if they latch onto you, boy, they got some jaws on them.
Yeah.
But before we end the show, what's like, since you've been down here and you've really experienced Southeast herping, what's been like your favorite species to find in your area? I've seen you've been getting out a lot. You see a lot of black rats. You're really good at finding queen snakes. So, but like, what's been your favorite species that you found since being down this way?
I think that the first time that we found queen snakes was really exciting. Same thing with the rough green snakes. Just anytime I see a green snake, I'm like, what the fuck, man? I was going to walk right by that thing. It's just, I get super hyped about those. Those are just really rare. The green snakes are really hard to find in New England. So
they're really hard to find here, man.
Yeah.
You're lucky to find one.
But I think that
and
my
it's not
favorite,
because they're rare.
No.
I think that my favorite thing to see is probably copperheads, honestly. Like, I just love copperheads, man. They're just iconic to me. They're so rare in New England, and I was very lucky to have known of areas where I could go and see them in New England. And so that was the first venomous snake that I saw in the wild. So it's just like something that holds a real special place in my heart for me. And anytime that I see one, I just get super hyped about it because they're all unique. They all are super pretty. I'm not good at road cruising. So like anytime I find them, I'm just like super jazzed about it. Dude,
road cruising, baby.
Here's the deal. Road cruising doesn't exist in New England. You can't find snakes on the roads, or if you can, I don't know how to freaking do it. So I know really well what a copperhead or what a snake looks like when I'm walking. It can be underneath a pile of brush and I'll be like, oh, I saw a little coil right there. There's a snake right there. I'm excellent at that. When I am driving, I have driven past big copperheads in the road, and I was like, I think that was a snake maybe. And I like turn around and there's this giant copperhead in the road. I'm like, damn, that was a snake. How did I not realize that was a snake right there?
Dude, I'm kind of I'm not gonna say I'm the opposite because I'm really good at spotting stuff in the brush, but man, I've gotten to where I can spot, like, I spotted a pinewood snake on the road that was about that big,
bro.
And like, I was with a buddy and I saw it and I whipped over. I was like, that was a snake. He goes, dude, bullshit, that was not a snake. I got out, sure enough, dude, little pinewood sitting right there. And I was like, snake. And then I looked up the road, I was like, another one. He goes, where? I'm like, right there. I ran up, it was an earth snake about the same size, literally 10 yards in front of it. And he was like, damn, bro, you're really good at this. I was like,
you need to come down here, man. Jake will put you on anything you want to find.
I've heard that he's good at putting people on things, so
y'all are gonna just kill me with that, man. I never said any such thing. I promise gators and probably copperheads.
Okay, copperheads is worth it for me. I have not found a rattlesnake since I moved down here, and I just happen to live in the part of North Carolina where, like, rattlesnakes, if you look at their distribution, it dips right around Raleigh and Durham. Like, there's none around Raleigh and Durham, and then like everywhere else in North Carolina, almost, you get them. So I have to drive like an hour in any direction to see timbers, and I just have not targeted them or really put in the time to find them. I've just been very content finding the stuff that I'm finding currently.
I mean, you can always drive like 4 to 6 hours and see some of the prettiest cane breaks that you'll ever see in your freaking life.
Here's the deal. We're going to talk about that because I've only seen timbers in New England, and I found pygmies when we went to Daytona last year, but I've not found canebrakes, or I haven't found any rattlesnakes since I moved at all. So I need to see some. It's got to happen.
Dude, we have the prettiest cane breaks you will
Mm.
ever see in your life, baby.
They got like that pink stripe down the back.
Dude, I found well, ours don't get. We get some with the pinks. A lot of ours get more orange. Like I found, I'll have to shoot you a picture of the prettiest and one of the biggest I've ever found. This thing was like 5 foot long.
Damn.
About as big around, almost as big around as a soda can, and it had a perfect orange stripe down its entire back. The thing was like this blondish white color, like dude, it stretched across the entirety of a dirt road. Like it was just beautiful, beautiful specimen. Damn. And those are some of my favorite snakes to find. I love finding cane breaks,
dude.
God, I freaking love those things. I found more on my one WMA than anywhere else. I found several out there. And it's funny because I found some that, like, to somebody who's used to seeing timbers, wherever you want to draw the line between timber and canebrake, whatever. But to somebody who's used to seeing timbers, they would look at one I found on the same WMA and said, that's a timber. Thing had a black tail. It was super dark, you know, and then, you know, across the other side of the WMA, this really light, perfect orange stripe. And then in the actually the same spot that I found that really dark one, I found a baby when Ben Frame came down, and it was like 55 degrees when he came. We found a baby that had the same thing. It was super light, had a perfect orange stripe down its back, you know, it only had a button for a rattle, you know. Just, oh, dude. I love our cane breaks, man.
Yeah.
God, I love them so much. But
dude, hell yes. Hell yes. I'm so down.
You gotta come visit, man. I'll put you on a puff adder. Let's go. No, that's the only, every time somebody herps with me, I'm like, look, you'll see gators. I can take you a spot to see gators. Anything else is up in the air. That's,
yeah.
I don't care what anybody else has said. Those words that I'll put you on something have never come from my mouth. But
yeah, I got one spot that's like consistent for queen snakes and northern water snakes and midland water snakes. And usually we see a good amount of turtles, and like we'll see DKs and stuff there. And, you know, 50-50 on black rat snakes. But that's one spot where I go to where I know if we go there, we will see snakes in the first minute of being there.
Dude. And see, I want to come to you and find northerns and midlands. When we were in Georgia, we found one midlands, and Skylar found it sitting up like eye level in a tree, and he snatched it out. And I was geeking over that freaking snake, man. I was so excited. But man, I want to see more midlands. I want to see more northerns because God,
they are tight.
Oh, I love those things, man.
The northerns down here are not as pretty as the ones in New Hampshire or Massachusetts.
Oh, dude, yeah.
But
I mean, those are next to none, dude. Like those are by far the prettiest northerns that you'll ever see. But
yeah,
they're nice, man. All we get here is we get bandits and we get red bellies or plain bellies, whatever the hell you want to call them. I call them red bellies down here. You know, I found some that were like, you know, kind of dull but kind of red. And then I found some that were like bright, like red orange kind of look to them. And then we get your classic bandits, but even our bandits are really, really variable here.
Hell yeah.
They're awesome. I love water snakes.
Dude, that's
nerd.
Yeah, I don't consider water snakes bycatch. I will take a header into a swamp to catch a water snake if I have to. But I freaking love those snakes, man. Nothing. Well, two snakes I will never get tired of finding are yellow rat snakes, water snakes. Bar none. Everything else is just a pleasure to see because I don't see them often. But yellow rats and water snakes, geek every time.
Hell
every
yeah.
single time.
That's where it's at, man. You just got to do what excites you. That's all it is.
Yeah, that's all it is. That's why I have like 8 different locality yellow rats in my collection now. So it's
Dude, hell yeah.
I love it. But so we're at 218. Where can people find you if they've been living under a rock?
Yeah, if you don't follow me, you can check me out on Instagram at Rob is Creeping It Real. I post mostly on Instagram. I do some stuff on Facebook, not really. I kind of like, I got 1,000 friend requests in queue right now on Facebook, so
It's insane.
I don't really add people on there because like I share a lot of my like regular life thoughts on there. I mean, I still do
Right.
post a lot of snake stuff, but like a lot of this stuff is just like, random. And I feel like I got a pretty good community of people on Facebook that's like,
Yeah.
I can talk to them about personal stuff. If people are just interested in the reptile stuff, check me out on Instagram. I had a threads. I don't know why I got threads because I didn't use Twitter, so it just doesn't make sense to me. I can't understand it.
Me
Twitter
neither.
never made sense to me because it's like you have to be there when it's posted, or if you don't get it right in that moment, it's not relevant anymore. And I'm like, I can't be on something like that. But
Yeah.
I post on Instagram. People can check it out. Rob is Creeping It Real. I do same thing on TikTok. I post things when I think it's interesting. But yeah, just those two places, TikTok and Instagram, if you want to see any of the reptile stuff. And do not add me on Facebook. I probably won't add you.
I've got you on Facebook, so I feel I feel special.
I scour people's profiles when they send me a friend
Oh, yeah.
request to see if there's
I do the same
anything
thing.
questionable. If there's anything questionable,
Yeah.
I'm like, you can just sit in the queue. I'm not about
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, for sure. And then obviously check out Rob's podcast, Reptile Talk.
Yes, thank you.
Got that
I
with
can't believe I forgot
Jeremy.
to plug that. Yeah, me and Jeremy are gonna have Stephen Cush and Desiree on
Nice.
to talk about scrubs next. I think it's Thursday, next Thursday or Wednesday. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure it's Thursday. We're gonna be on there talking to them about scrub pythons. I'm super hyped about it. Stephen has been now the most successful breeding scrub pythons since David Means, and he got a bunch of his stuff from David Means. So I'm sure we're going to talk about that. And just, if you're interested in scrub pythons, make sure you check that out. Check out the Reptile Talk podcast with me and Jeremy. We got lots of cool episodes up there. And then, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I appreciate you guys for having me on. It's been tight. And
I've been wanting to get you on for a long time now, so I'm glad we
schedules finally worked out. I'm a
Yeah.
slippery eel, so
Phil's gonna be jealous.
he sent me a message that he was crying. So I got to get an episode in with Phil at some point too, because I love that dude. He's amazing.
Dude, it was so funny. I saw because like we have a group chat with me, Rob, and Smitty, and Rob just basically sends us funny reels all the time.
Yes.
And
and weird snake stuff.
Yeah, you sent the thing about being a slippery eel earlier, and I was like, what the hell does this mean? And then I listened to Snakes and Stogies today, and I was like, oh, now I get it.
Yeah. I was just like, that was funny. So
no, it was good. So definitely glad we did this. We'll have to get Jeremy on at some point.
Yeah.
Get an update from him. Dude, it's so funny thinking about Jeremy. I remember watching him on YouTube when I was like 12, you know, and then it's like he's kind of a friend now, and it's like kind of weird. Obviously, I love Jeremy, but I just think it's funny that like looking at old Hognose, and Colubrid videos back when I didn't even keep snakes. I remember seeing his collection and him like posting videos and stuff, and now it's like I know him.
Yeah,
it's just it's weird, man. But
Jeremy's
an awesome guy.
I'm gonna flip the script a little bit, but I want to real quick, if we can. I want to know what has got you guys excited about reptiles right now, because I asked that on my podcast.
Well, this isn't your podcast.
Yeah, I know.
Go ahead.
Rhino rats.
Yeah.
Jansen
I mean, Gonyosoma in general, it seems like there's the black Jansenii right now are super popular and super expensive. They're cool.
I saw that. I was like, what the fuck?
I think it's, I don't know. I mean, I'm excited because there's a lot of Gonyosoma coming in right now. I mean, it's cool that people are interested. I mean, it's also kind of sucks because a majority of those are probably not going to last very long.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, rhino rats, corns, just stuff. I don't know. There's nothing really like outside of sort of what we're doing and what I got going on in my room right now that I'm
Really got you jazzed. Fulvius
Yeah,
Apparel is what you
yeah.
got jazzed.
yeah
Working on the shirt stuff. Hell yeah.
that's been fun.
Hell yeah, man.
For me, it's everything, man. You know, I can't really pinpoint anything, but I'm really just like the last several months I've been super just high on the hobby and the podcast, and mostly because like, you know, getting into the locality colubrid side of things has really just ignited so much in me. And then having all these, like I said, I have like 8 different localities of just yellow rats, and I don't know why that just gets me so freaking excited, but it does, you know. And I've got new localities coming in come Daytona. I've already got some stuff lined up to, you know, that's being brought to me, and I'm just, you know, the locality stuff and everything I've got in this room right now just has me just, I'm so excited for
Hell yeah.
all of it. I just hatched out my first colubrids, you know, my Santa Rosa County white oaks just hatched, and I'm so high on all of it, man. You know, I've got I just added 2 new localities of yellows, you know, the other month, and just, you know, they're still in quarantine, and I got a different county of Everglades rats in. You know, I'm a part of the AML project now, and
Oh damn.
you know, so I've got AML Glades here from Glades County, and then just everything, man. I'm so excited for all of it. The locality stuff has just really got me going, and then just line breeding within the localities as well. You know, trying to do some stuff with the Seminole yellows, and got a really cool project in mind with those. And you know,
that's where it's at, man.
And the fact that I have all the stuff that used to be obsolete just makes me so happy. So I've got Texas rats, I've got yellows, I've got blacks, I've got grays, and you know, a couple different of all of them except for blacks. I only have the Spartanburg County black rats, but those are, you know, yellows are where my heart is, and just having all the stuff that I've got now is just makes me so happy. Fills me with nothing but joy.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah, that's why, you know, it's just keep what you love, man. You know, and that's really what I'm doing now. Is
the only way to do it, man. That's the only way to do it. I'm looking at all the stuff that I got. I'm like, things are gonna change when I can upgrade a little bit. But
yeah, because everybody sees all these rat snakes I have, and you know, it's a lot of people consider them, you know, dirt snakes, you know, but the people that really love them, and
yep.
I'm 100% one of those people. You know, I love the locality aspect, you know, and I love herping, so it's just all of it, man. Nothing doesn't excite me about it right now.
It all comes together, and that's what makes it worth it, man.
Yeah, being able to, you know, and going to Georgia and actually finding a black rat just gave me like a whole new perspective, you know, because I grew up catching yellows, so that's why yellows are really where I'm at. But like actually catching a different color phase of, you know, these obsolete rats was awesome. So now I got to go find gray rats wherever I can find those. And yeah, so
dude, that's where it's at. Fuck yeah.
That's about all of it, man. So,
dude, thank you guys so much for having me on, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. Like I said, it's been a long time coming. So excited.
Good conversation.
Yeah.
Good conversation.
Absolutely. Well,
we'll be back Monday for Snakes and Stogies. I don't remember which number. I think 167, maybe 170. But this episode was brought to you by BlackBoxCages.com. Get yourself a rack, get yourself a cage. Use code THN at checkout. Save yourself a little bit of money. Then hop over to SteveSnaketuary.com. Get the full lineup of Venom hot sauce. You will not regret it. And then hop over to FulviusApparel.com. Get yourself a shirt. I just made the discount code THN live.
That's right.
Save yourself some money on that order. 15% off just for THN listeners, as a thank you. So
hell yeah.
We'll be seeing everybody on Monday. Thank you all. Have a good evening.